I don't need that. Yeah. All right. That right there, and then let's see. And okay, I hope that oops. I hope it's everything is. I'm trying to close a bunch of things here. Just in case, doing too much here. Well, I don't know if anybody's in there. It looks like it maybe the answer is I don't know. Maybe one. I didn't expect much today. This is a very quick test run, essentially, but I'm if I'm kind of pausing here for just a moment, I'm kind of looking over the different features. It says I don't have access to this feature, whatever that means. Okay. But I'm assuming, and it looks like because I heard myself on another YouTube tab I had open to this, so it must be live. I must be live, and that's great. Okay, so my name is Delray Cross. I'm a poet, and I know it's today's Super Bowl Sunday, I guess, and I don't know what the overlap is between Super Bowl fans and people who like poetry, but I'm going to go ahead and go right here from the get-go and read from a project that I've been working on for essentially since 2002, which would be 24 years. But in 2005, I started a blog, which is the home for this particular project, and it is a very appropriate home for the project as far as I'm concerned, and I can talk about that at some point. And I think that this is, I believe that this will go on in perpetuity, but I'm not sure, so that therefore people can watch this at their own leisure. But this is brand new to me, so I'm just trying to, and the reason before I start reading poetry, I mean, I should just start reading because this is the very beginning here, and I'm kind of lousy at extemporaneous kind of stuff when it comes to my poetry. Anyway, I can talk, but not necessarily about the right stuff. Let's see. So I'm going to go to, but I have, because this, I'll just give you this much, because this is a diary-esque and it's on a blog, and it's a lot of the material had been taken from diaries of mine from when I was in my 20s anyway, till, a couple decades after that, mixed with stuff that was going on around me whenever I decided that I was going to, whenever I'd write a poem, it would be, I'll tell you the whole story later, but it was the source material of a lot of this were my old diaries, which might surprise some poems. You might go, what? And others you would totally get it. But because of that, I always wanted to do a public reading in which it was kind of just the public, not just a poetry reading that was advertised, just for the humiliation of it all, like someone opening up your diary and reading it in public, for one thing, and then just because I mean, it was inspired, I think, by Ron Silliman, who did Ketchak, read his entire book, well, at Powell Street Station here in San Francisco, which is where I was planning on doing it. So this is kind of a test run for that potential kind of busking event, which I've never done in my entire life. I was homeless for 2 years, and I never did any busking, never did any peddling or whatever you want to call it. All right. What I'm going to do first is read from the very first poems that I posted, that I wrote, that were anachronisms, and I'll go from there. I'm just increasing the size here, and this will hopefully, time will probably go by pretty fast for me, but I hope I won't bore you too much. I didn't even pour myself a glass of water, which I should do before I do anything, right? I'm in my own apartment in San Francisco. I just moved into last May, and it's I love this place, actually. It's so much nicer than where I was for nearly 6 years, I guess, in previous. Just coming out of being on the streets, basically, or homeless in a shelter for most of the time. And so it's on McAllister Street near the Civic Center, if anybody's aware of where that is, if you're from San Francisco or know the city. And it's very quaint. And I look right overlook an alleyway. I'm on the first floor, overlooking, and just a little bit high, but it's like half a story up, looking down on a little 1 block alley called Breen Place, less than a block. Breen is my mother's last name, which I love. So it's also a sound well. So if is there any protesting going on in Civic Center, which is just right down less than a block away that way, the mayor's office, the big Civic Center in San Francisco. And there have been lots of obvious protests. It's been quite loud. This is like it's a sound well right down here below on Breen, but it's not that bad. It just every once in a while, if it gets a little bit too much, just have to close the windows and deal with it. All right. So I have written over almost 5,000 of these things so far, and they've become literally daily poems over the last 4 or 5 years. Initially, I was thinking, I'll try to write one every weekday. I sort of did that pretty well. I maybe missed 2 months, I think I counted, which just embarrasses me for some reason, because I couldn't even believe that. But even when I was homeless, even at the worst times, I was always writing these things. Tuesday, July the 28th, 2005, the very first one I ever put up and they're all, the titles of each of them are Roman numerals, and the Roman numerals in chronological order from the first. So it's I, or 1. I have a nasty blue, my 2 nights in a row under Hotel Huntington, which is up on Nob Hill, where I used to live. I have a nasty blister on my thumb. I'm inconsistent, anachronistic, paper pumpkins, a new phase of window over my life of yellow butterflies and no sex. Hummingbirds and pigeons. It's a yellow butterfly. I glue myself inside your closed eyes, what seems a smooth June. It's lit, closed eyes down, what seems smooth on the 17th. We'll be moving stuff. 3 yellow butterflies, best way I can describe it now. Write more single-handedly, billowingly, pipe dreams, this saga. On Wednesday, July the 27th, 2005. It's July. I always get confused between whether it's July or June that I started blogging these, but either way, it's been 25 years last July now. No, 20 years. 20 years I've been doing this last July. So it's over 20 and a half years that I've been doing this now, which seems kind of crazy, but it does give a span. So I'll read some. I'm going to start with some of the first ones. I'll go on later to maybe a middle section, and then later I'll read some of the brand new ones. Number 2, for July the 27th, 2005, posted the Anachronisms blog on July the 27th, 2005. And please feel free to comment if you have any questions whatsoever. Please feel free to chime in. I think I've got it set up so that you can do that, and I can probably see if you do. And I'm happy to try to answer questions. My blister is getting better. The green garden hose with the butterflies, trying to relax, reading lemons, emails from a smattering of purple blooms, and one orange one, like lunch at Rosie's today with distant airplane flashbacks. I mean, I just keep it at the back of my tongue. Am I supposed to go ahead and say cerulean? I just have a feeling, especially since he doesn't trust me, he's just saying that because he's afraid the television antenna, stark still, otherwise fool around. Now with the butterflies that fall like snowdrops, an undetermined type of relationship, two folks chattering in front of dust, cat curled, not going in a good direction. I got a birthday card. Thursday, July the 28th, 2005, Anachronism number 3 was posted to the Anachronisms blog. And it's, by the way, the blog's found, and you can always read along if you'd like, at Anachronisms with a ZMS. That's ANACHRONIZMS.blogspot.com. Again, what I feel is the perfect house for the publication of this particular whole unit. It also includes videos of me reading each poem. Not all of them yet, but almost all of them, getting close. And as well as since 2011, I've included a photograph that sort of juxtaposes or sits underneath the poem from my collection. Now I am 29 years old. The Virgin Mary is sunning next to a broken bough, incredibly uneventful. He thinks I have a way with words. He got me a nice lamp and some plants. I need to get those framed. Massage lotions, phone messages, her poems like colloids, full of frozen gestures, dream scenes, the Columbus Zoo. He told me he doesn't think we'll ever get back together. Drive to work for a while. To give some context of where I am when I'm writing these things, or where I was when I was writing these things, I had just moved out on my own after moving here to San Francisco with a partner, so that he could go to grad school, and I almost did so reluctantly because I had grown and I'd only been there for 3.5 years, but I really fell in love with Boston, where I was previously to that. So I started writing these right when I moved into my very first, the very first studio apartment on Bush Street in, it was really the Tenderloin, but it was right underneath Nob Hill in 2002, I think. And I started posting them, like I just said a minute ago, in 2005. And this one is we're up to number 4. July the 29th, 2005, Anachronism number 4, posted to the Anachronisms blog by me. Summer is almost here, and love is an accumulation. He beat me, and we played a little mouse. If he continues to play, he can stay, but I enjoy this game better than the subway. I enjoy his sonnets. Best ever, I'm wet some. It's been the best spring ever. We were eaten alive today, a wet spring, and the longer it's been, the less I feel. I took a break and made the bed between the prescription refills. Inevitably, our perspective shift, this being due to the ticking more so than normal stuff. Otherwise, no terrible side effects, no blue boxes. I didn't kick him since he finally gave me money. It's a little rough there. So now we're going to move into August of 2005. And the very first poem posted in August 2005 was number 5, posted Monday, August 1st, 2005. It is Anachronism number 5. The last couple of days, not great. The cat stretches in front of the fan, a powder, I guess. He said, it's the most fun he's had all year. I just stopped the coffee and gathered my wits in the mail. Another poem, and here I am. Just look. The Thai food, my haircut, the big move, the wackiness. I feel justified when I put the collar on. Wednesday, August the 3rd, 2005, Anachronism number 7. Nice people speaking other languages at 6 p.m. and he hasn't showed yet. 6:10 p.m. and there he is, all fixed up in a Scottish cap that I can't resist. I'm still thoroughly confused about who he is. We watched 2 scary movies in one night. I opened this month's phone bill. It's half what it was last month. On Saturday, he was wearing a yellow honeybee shirt with a little zipper at the auction of Old West End homes where we kissed and kissed. I just wanted to turn all the televisions off and vie for one of my neighbor's parking spaces. August 4th, 2005, anachronism number 8. I'm eating blueberry cheesecake. My windows need cleaning and the fog has arrived. Went walking around in Monroe. So everything out my window has a sort of Michigan surreality to it. Right now, he's doing laundry. I always want to say Monroe, which is what we called Monroe, Louisiana. And I grew up in Arkansas, but it's I think in Michigan, it's Monroe, I suppose. Most people would. Right now, he's doing laundry, mad at me because I didn't get around to helping him. The birds in the courtyard begin to chew up the street noises. I open the window and try to find them. Across the square, there's a lit lamp just inside a dark room, and I'm having a dizzy spell, which I did a lot. I've had bouts with vertigo a lot in my 20s and 30s, more so than now. Friday, August the 5th, 2005, anachronism number 9. Hair parted just so, still as the cat looking into the well, some freaks over the green box at the cafe tonight, stuff I pricked. Sunday, you'll notice Detroit is hysterical. I'm not using games here. Bing Crosby rented movies, drove up to Detroit. It's Fleet Week. Miss Poetry Reading and we picnicked on the waterfront, turned out, walking around the museum. Then Royal Oak, my brother calling, how old I am. His ex-girlfriend died a couple of weeks ago, which turned out to be quite the event. That is literally, a lot of these are collages of stuff that's like literally happening presently and things, so that the narrative, don't ever trust the narrative, of course, but you can still get a little bit of taste. I mentioned Detroit several times, and then Monroe, Louisiana. Monroe, not Louisiana, but Michigan. As I was saying earlier, I started doing this, the inclination, the very first anachronism that I wrote was, I've been going through a breakup, and I have lost everything since then, but I've kept my journals from when I was writing journals when I was 7, I think, or 8, I don't know, but diary, and I wrote them into my 40s, off and on, and mostly on for most of the time. So I was like going through, I picked up one old diary and I was just opening it up when I was at my new apartment, and I had just been going through a breakup, and it was what I was writing about at the in the diary turned out to be the ramifications of a horrible breakup for me, I guess, kind of a really bad one, in which I got really depressed for about a month, I guess, afterwards. And I was just thinking about where I am now. It's a much better place, thank God. I was still really good friends with my ex at the time, anyway. And with the ex that I had just broken up with, I still talk. I've talked to the one from that it was a horrible breakup as well. So it's not like it's been that bad. But whatever the case, at the time I was going through depression. But what I did was I just thought, well, how interesting things can be, going through things, big life changes like this, and I just started writing about. I just started making a collage between the two, taking some stuff out of the diary from that day, and then thinking about what's going on in what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, and all that other stuff presently at that time. That's how they began, and I just I kept doing this, and I kept going in chronological order with the diaries. So I got through most all of them before I lost them all. Just to give you some context. Monday, August the 8th. And actually, I didn't give you the context at all. What I meant to say, and this is why it's stupid when I talk. I know it is especially when I'm reading poetry. But to give some context, I went to grad school from 1991 to 92. I skipped a couple of years working between undergrad and grad school, and went to grad school and got a degree in theater, my second degree in theater, master's, at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. what I like to call the armpit of the nation. But please, I'm sorry if I offend anybody. I did not like it. It was just flat. I liked terrain. It was flat and very cold, of course. But I also, during that time, lived in Toledo, Ohio after I graduated or after I got my master's. And then first small time with that particular boyfriend that I had broken up with in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is kind of the jewel of the Midwest, as far as I'm concerned. I loved Ann Arbor, and I loved all of Michigan, really. And oddly enough, my father, I grew up in Arkansas, spending my entire life in one little tiny rural town, and my entire, until I left home, until I was 17 and left to go to college. But my father had grown up in Detroit, so Detroit had some more significance than just the fact that I lived nearby it. Monday, August the 8th, 2005, I posted Anachronism 10 to the blog. I have no idea where he went, and I'm very pissed. Passing over Black River, my thoughts leak. I'm momentous only in that it's the first game I've won in years. The Japanese, they own the Metreon, you know? I used to have some worthwhile qualities. It's cool that I know people now and can visit with them. Here's the boy with the Scottish cap. Tonight, the UFO over the Hotel Huntington doesn't want to land. If I'm not mistaken, I should mention that this poem, the one I just read, and the one before it, I think were originally published in Big Bridge, which Michael Rothenberg did Big Bridge. If I'm mistaken, somebody correct me, or I don't know, whatever. How many? Two of you. But he started. What was it? 100,000 poets. I mean, he started a really great annual reading organization, but he's passed away just a few years ago. This one also was published in Big Bridge originally. It's Tuesday, August the 9th, 2005, number 11. Haven't written Warner. Warner, my fourth brothers, my fourth Warner, Gothic nice candle, my Warner grill out, my dead fireworks. Warner brothers, my fourth nice grill out, dead dad. And my Warner, my nice grill out, a Gothic mix. Nice dead poems and stir, my dead mix. And Cleveland, nice grill out, my dead dad. See the fireworks, nice grill out. Mix 3 poems and stir. Haven't written my candle, my fourth, my nice grill out, my mix 3 poems and a Gothic mix. My dead Cleveland, nice Warner Brothers. Went to fireworks, had a nice grill out. Haven't written shit. Wednesday, August the 10th, 2005, I posted Anachronism 12. How much green tea keeps me awake? The lightning outside, the cypress trees, quite beautiful. I'm reading Microsoft, and, well, that really sucked my day. I tried to explain to her that I never remember anyone, but I'd gotten a mad letter and sent a picture of myself because I care. Oh, well. Now we're at the riverfront before the fireworks with our citronella candles. Next week, we're gambling, visiting in-laws in Mississippi. I want to be a photographer and a poet. Thursday, August 11th, 2005, Anachronism number 13. My newest news week. Summer's back. Got my fan on. It's even harder that I'm irreligious. The yellow butterflies flutter around tomorrow. I count boat parts. He rolled over and I got on top. We're getting married in a hot air balloon. Counting the moles on his back, 3 fish. And this one was originally a press waiver broadside for a reading I did for Bill Corbett, who was my publisher, who for years, I mean, he's passed away as well a few years ago. And he was, to me, he was an absolutely lovely human being. I took a class of his for free because I could when I was working at MIT for the trustee's office for they call them the corporation. And it was a poetry class, and it was a wonderful experience. And he liked what I was doing, and we wound up becoming. We'd hang out every once in a while. Next thing you know, he's publishing he published 3 books of mine. One was a twofer with Mike County, was a little chapbook, and then the next one was a chapbook called Cinema Yosemite, and then finally a book with a spine called Love Bluffly. Yeah, I owe him so much. Friday, August 12th, 2000, and he did this as a broadside when I after I'd been in San Francisco for a year or two. He invited me to do a reading at MIT, and it was like I got paid to go, to fly to MIT. That was like the only time I've ever really had that kind of luxury. And I did a reading with Jim Burley. Number 14, posted Friday, August 12th, 2005. I fall asleep in Japanese today, Sunday, of this stupid echo, and I spin myself dreaming. Once is all and now is nothing. Like days I don't like, the dull whispers of faraway cathedrals, the choirs of how we are as a couple in 2 showers. The soap stings my tongue, which cannot find enough and is a hurricane of the blue sky over a roseate hotel. Is a nice sense of place that you can call your own, and someone else sets you aflutter. Sorry. And this one was, I guess, the broadside had 2 poems. This was the other one. Monday, August 15th, 2005, for the occasion of that reading in, I don't know, 2002 or 3 or something. I don't want what I want in life. This is anachronism number 15. I see 35 windows. Sometimes it helps to put pen to paper sometimes. A career I never wanted. The Blue Angels making big circles of smoke over Nob Hill. A career I sometimes wanted. Blue marbles, 35 windows of clouded agate. I don't want what I want. What I want in life are these sonnets. Whatever went right. The rice is ready. Okay, I'll read a couple more from these very, very first ones, and then we'll skip to somewhere in the later year. Cedar Point on Sunday. This is number 16, posted Tuesday, August the 16th, 2005. Cedar Point is an amusement park. I don't even know if it's still around, but it was an amusement park. If it isn't still, up in northern Ohio, just east of Toledo. Cedar Point on Sunday with little hairs of cat. The weather was great. The doves, the pigeons, hummingbirds, robins. Won $20 with a raffle ticket. When we settle down with someone, maybe weekends aren't all party, but stay home, cook, wine, rent, movies, and sit on the couch, hoping maybe to get some time to reflect. Cotton candy clouds, the middle of October, new shoes, tennis shoes, shirts, slacks, shorts, belt, socks, underwear. Wednesday, August 17th, 2005. Anachronism number 17. Good morning. Some of the lemons, oranges, have rolled down next to the Virgin Mary. Maybe they wanted to go to the Ann Arbor Art Fair. It's been such a pleasant morning, though. I believe I meant to say there are no brown leaves. I don't usually open my window so high, but the purple flowers in front of my apartment building are still blooming brilliantly. And now I'm able to hear clinking and nailing and bits of muffled conversation. It's like I missed a lot of time and in the process got beat down quite a bit. Oh well, everybody's got a twin pair of toothbrushes. I do have to drag things out of them, which is tedious. In fact, 2 nights in a row have left me wondering if I'm going to have to look into playing the role of Bob again. Okay. Friday, August the 19th, 2005. Number 19. 2 after dinner mints. No worries about having to walk. 2 stuffed emails being chilled, it turns out, having received several. Let's see, open their bits. Oh, look, a UFO having my 90-day probationary period of driving force disappearing into an ugly blue. Then the wonder after dinner, I'm ugly more. Then it disappeared. Being chilled, it turns out, the explicit walkabout, too stuffed to worry. Number 20, posted August the 22nd, 2005. Have I mentioned that I really like watching movies when we're lying like two toothpicks in the shape of a cross? My new miniature ledger, it doesn't feel much different, seeing those red splashes across the screen, which signify blood, in a funny way, though. The guy I went out with once on a lame date behind the counter is still a dull echo in my ears. It's the same sort of mess as everything boring and not assertive in the least. Last night I drank pixie piss at Dr. Bombay's, after which there was a place called Dr. Bombay's. I don't think it's, anyway, after which I saw a UFO, and today I'm all smoke and mirrors. How long can I go without naming names? Which would be a recurring theme. I mean, I do name names. I do talk about my friends, and I real names come up, fake names come up. It's all here. Twisting the radiator knob that does nothing, hitting the big money around this time, and lunch with the true man who just sold more business, this independence thing I'm trying to get in touch with, having lost all of the yellow butterflies. I'm in such a stupor. On Tuesday, August 23rd, 2005, number 21 of the Anachronisms. And just to point out once more, I'm still writing these things today. Every day, there's one posted, pretty much. Now that I know how to, I can back post or whatever. I mean, it's like I do post how many ever days there are in a month. That's how many days, poems get posted per month, and that's it never goes over that amount. And so now I just post one every day. At this time, it was probably more about 20 per month, 20 to 23 per month. Writing an imaginary letter to you. Just finished half a sandwich and a really good bowl of gazpacho. Since we've been dating, the nitty gritty is I'm not satisfied with the way you want things. The guy who said we should be boyfriends, that we really looked good together, maybe it's time for me to move on. He also said his mother was always giving him mints for his bad breath. I'm not sure if that's really how I feel, but you had the mettle to answer him. Something like, well, when the time is right and all. I believe it's good for me to think like this. Why do I have such a crush on you? I'm always over scrutinizing things. Do you ever want to see anything I write? Wednesday, I'll go through the rest of August here of 2005, and then we'll move up to another month later in the years. Number 22, on the front porch, red, blue, green mini hairs of priestesses. He's showering or telephone kissing in front of a Richter abstract build. Richter, Gerhard Richter, the artist. I'm to dinner, simmer, like homesickness, kiss, kiss, next to Urban Outfitters for new secretary, her second workday. Visit home squeegees, long-handled brushes, large plexiglass panels. Betty, 1988. I think this is also Richter. From Phantasm, his daughter, several grays, otherwise drunk-looking. Tomorrow, take profile, whatever, henceforward. Like 6:45 Wednesdays, I kiss him on his Union Square, down 6 hot flights to laundry, dinner, and wet from shower. Thursday, August 25th, 2005, anachronism number 23. 2 years ago, as we both agree, things were great. The sunshine in this parking lot, its grand entrance, the cat lying on my favorite sweaters. It was too perfect. I crossed the street for my morning coffee, not bothering anymore to look both ways. Remember these apartments? They were subsidized. I lived here once. A fallen limb, still the 2 bright lemons next to the Virgin. My powder blue Audi, the old Perrysburg Holland apartments that was in Toledo suburb. A pair of hummingbirds, loving birds, flying out of the courtyard. At least I look sharp. Friday, August the 26th, 2005, number 24. Here I am weary, but the sun, it continues to shine. A loud sun over the carpet and Main Cathedral. Do I stay for the gay triumph of a cloud because my lights don't work? The green reach just blitzed through Hotel Huntington, a bunch of other stuff like Orange versus Purple, a chain reaction, sent the sky to market. Although I was so horny, leaves, yellowing, get the fuck out of Dodge. And I used to, if any of these had been published, I used to put that they've been published somewhere. And I don't really, it's been so long since it's been quite some time since I've even had any kind of publication out besides this. But this was originally published in a wonderful little online magazine called Can We Have Our Ball Back by Jim Burley. Monday, August 29th, 2005, number 25. I've lost whatever will. I had to stay away from this gray rock that is friable. It's like there's a big lump, this misery, where I painting it, I would not be painting it. I want to wither away to nothing and examine the break, its circumference, the round years. No more dream so temperamental. And then 2 more from August here before I move to another year. Tuesday, August the 30th, 2005. I think you might be, you could get the idea that there are a lot of these. And I've always had this, one of the reasons I'm doing this is I really do want to have this marathon reading, and I always thought I would read all of them. I can't imagine now how long that would, first of all, take. It might take, but this might help me understand it a little bit better. But it would take maybe 24 hours to do that at least. I really don't know, to read 5,000 poems. Tuesday, August the 29th, 2005, number 26. Sipping lemon Coke, waiting around for a beautiful day. In this class, we will write toward the terrain between poetry and fiction. There must be a way we can work it out where the shape and tone, as always, remind us over and over that the line or sentence is just an idea, that I love him and miss him, that narrative is the notion of time. These last few weeks in that somber place, maybe he's dead and characters shit. When it comes down to it, sometimes he's a jerk. The class will imagine and test out why honest love is true, and getting a life perhaps is stupid, or sometimes storytelling works against itself toward a knock on your butt kind of love that is rebuffed tenfold. Conventions are assumed intolerably selfish. Oh, to be fawned over in linear progression. Do we have to wait until after tax season for an authentic voice, which makes a novel swinging in a sooty tower under an elm tree at nighttime, and later that same big elm in the backyard, bang, bang, banging against my bedroom window? No one is here to soothe me except the deafening cicadas. Now it's dusk. And so as not to disturb his brothers, he sleeps, dreams, resolves to write forever, kicks at the mucky sand, watches paint peel off the back porch. And that, I think, is, you can really see, I think, what I finally like, oh, I know what I'm doing, or something, when I'm like just juxtaposing two kind of things that happen and are happening together, and turn it into something new, which is what, in a way, I was doing to myself. I was making myself I was making a new narrative about myself, basically. And it is, if you're here later, hopefully you'll hear a couple of the more kind of stories that are completely fictive, but we're made kind of in the same way. How you can really just, I guess it's chemistry or whatever you want to call it. You can just make of yourself whatever you want, It's part of the fun. But also at the same time, I'm literally the most honest. I have to, I'm the true intent is to leave some sort of mark of who I was or am, and as while I'm figuring that out myself. And that, I think, eventually comes through too. Here's the last one that I'll read from the very beginning ones. It's Wednesday, August 31st, 2005, number 27. Those white butterflies are moving very slowly. This is getting passe. First trip to the gym in months, then to Stacy's for a brief glimpse. Feel deathbed sick now. I'm mourning over my little coconut coaster, but I do have a new car. So I'm drinking an OJ and a little bit of fog, and I'm enjoying the little sing-song messages in my telephone that can't be deciphered, and I am okay. Alive. Now. Stopped by HBR Studio. It cost $45 for a haircut. I feel a little overheated, but like the guy at the door said, it's a beautiful summer night. Okay, now where will I go now? I did not make any plan for this. This was really random, and it was also kind of meant I haven't really advertised this, but maybe I will when if I can put this off in perpetuity. But this is also a fundraiser. I've got to come up with a little bit of extra money this month. Not much, but you know, a couple hundred, 300, 400, or I'm just to make it through the rest of the year, basically, because I got behind on things as things happen, because I haven't worked since a year ago, November. I'm still sending out resumes, tons of resumes. I'm getting very little interviews, and I keep crossing my fingers that I will get some soon, but and a job soon. And I'm getting good leads at the moment, a couple. So maybe things will work out. Anyway, this was also a fundraiser, but I will post, maybe if anybody that wants to help, feel free to send me an email, or I guess I don't have my email address here, but anyway, you can reach me somehow, probably, and I'll be happy to send you the information on how you can do that. I mean, for example, I run a magazine called Shampoo, and I have promised that I'm working on issue 42, which I am. The first issue I've been working on in years. I've had Shampoo going since 2000, so even longer than this. But I haven't. It's been on hiatus for a while. So now it's kind of it was a success for me as far as I'm concerned, and I'm starting a new issue, and I'm getting submissions, and I've already made the announcement and everything, and now you can't even see it online because I can't pay that stupid fee. I can't even pay the $2.99 that I need to pay for my. I just got a note in the email today that my Gmail will be disappearing on March the 1st or something like that, if I don't pay the $2.99 that I pay per month for my. There's to have storage, essentially. All right, I don't know what month we're going to. I'm going to go. I'm just going to randomly pop into May 2014. Saturday, May. Let's start. Let's go down to the first and go. I don't know why it's at the Anachronisms, but I feel like I should go in chronological order. So on Thursday, May the 1st, 2014, I posted Anachronism 2141. We're up to 2141. So a lot has passed. You know, we were at 2006, so it's been 8 years. And as my head clears a bit, I find myself, like now, thinking of this messiness that I've become when being fed recommendations, which are supposedly based on a democratic accumulation of responses. Then it dawns on me that I'm elitist. I think I was writing about this. I'm writing about Yelp here. I hate Yelp. Or more accurately, I remember that I am. I sigh and revel in that truth for a moment. And then slowly I put one hand, admittedly in what might be considered an overly dramatic fashion, over my eyes. But it doesn't keep me from seeing the obvious. I've gotten comfortable writing just anything about myself, I guess, by this time. Friday, May the 2nd, 2014, number 2142. My exasperation with the ludicrous constructs that lure me from here to there to wherever, and how I go on purpose ever onward toward my imagined importances. All of this is generally say that I prefer, in fact, I suppose I truly can only tolerate, if not demand, sage, experience-driven, and elsewise accredited advice this is the same subject, kind of, on the really important stuff, like let's have real critics do critical responses rather than just, anybody. Is that controversial? That which, to whom, and for which I should point my propensities. Fortunately, it's the era of authentic deficit, era of attention deficit disorder, and thus I never dwell too long on the bitter pills of politics, lousy advice, and the world wide webs of corporate and corporeal manipulation. I'm easily distracted, and how could I not be? When I notice that in other news, it looks like Justin Bieber has been accused of an egg attack. I want him so bad it hurts. Now, where was I again? Okay. Saturday, May the 3rd, 2014, number 2143. It's called Blah, Blah, Rama Lama Ding Dong. Please stop all the Star Trooper rumors that have been going around about me. They are absolutely not true. Take one down, pass it around, 99 bottles of sleep on the wall. Also, here come the moral helicopters. By the way, I love it when you develop. It's always so public. Okay. And I got a little raunchy every once in a while too. Sunday, May the 4th, 2014, number 2144. It's called Let's Play Poke the Tail into the Donkey. I'm singing our national anthem right now in bed. I just sang the national anthem. Oh my God, I just said that. Inability. I'm on a ferry, and that I spelled F-A-I-R-Y, that just departed from Vallejo for San Francisco. I have been on a ferry, F-E-R-R-Y, that departed Vallejo to San Francisco. On Christmas Eve, I should add, M&O picked up good old Mac down in Monterey, and we all spent the night in revelry. I should also note, please ignore, that I am being the same child as always, reactionary. Monday, May the 5th, 2014, I posted Anachronism 2145 to the Anachronisms blog. It's called Inability. There was no real sexual tension, so we played several games of Rook. Anybody ever played Rook? That was our family game when I was a kid. He's fun to play cards with. Then, Christmas morning, I sketched oddly until they left. I don't know how to describe it. Definitely a mood suck. Then, doing nothing. How would I describe this more effectively? Tuesday, May the 6th, 2014, I posted Anachronism 2146. Odd enough that on Christmas morning, each with new tablets that add life, some talk. It was nice, but how would I describe it? It comes across as so wrong, but it's not foolish feeling good. When it comes relatively easy is a construct like feeling bad, and it doesn't just come crashing in. It added life, recovery ships, because now, roosted, spending the night at Peter's I feel so good. This just confirmed. A game thrust to the brink. Kiehl's moisturizer. Nothing and pleasure interspersed. Wednesday, May the 7th, 2014, number 2157. And if whoever you are, anybody that's here, I really, really appreciate this. This is mostly a test run for something I want to do at a very soon point, because but and it's something that I've always wanted to do, which is to do a kind of a public reading of all of the anachronisms. I don't think I'll do all of them. I think I'm just going to do maybe 10 hours worth. And this is also doing 3 hours worth is going to give me an idea of how that might go. And I appreciate people that come and go and whatnot. Or maybe the one that I see is just the same person from the very beginning. But there is, I see that some people are coming in and leaving, and that's great. And I hope it's working. My gosh, I hope that you're hearing things. I'm assuming that after this is all said and done, that I will have then a 3-hour YouTube video that can go up on YouTube. And so I can point to it and people can look at it. And in that regard, I'll do hopefully that'll be the case. We'll see. I've never done this before. Can't believe we're almost an hour into it too. And I've only got 3. That's great. It's passing fast for me anyway. Wednesday, May the 7th, 2014. Number 2157 is called The No Gift Christmas. What am I? Fun. Adds life. This just confirmed, like feeling bad. The enjoyment of the brink of enjoyment, a construct, a game of nothing but beauty and pleasure interspersed. Having some pretty heady thoughts back in May of 2014. May 8th, 2014, number 2148 is called I Am Resolved. Not resolved, but just I am resolved. What is there to do in the face of time with the face of time? Hide inside of it? Apply pressure at pressure points in order to fix it? Doesn't give so easily, Oscar. I need to make a list of being thankful, make promises, how to accomplish made promises. Doing something without doing nothing. Nothing. Remind me, how can I make this effective? Should I even affect? Please kindly remind me to do something different next year. And then Friday, I'm talking to myself in these poems, like from poem to poem. Friday, May the 9th, 2014, number 2199. Next year, we'll have lots of fun, little gifts to open on Christmas Day. Boy, does this list ever exhaust. Now, notice that's posted in May. It is likely that I wrote it maybe Christmas the previous year. At some point, I was having 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 poems ahead of time for a while. And that hasn't happened in quite some time, probably over 12 or 13 years that I've had extra, poems that are ready to. Basically, I write a new poem most every day, and if I miss a day or two, I'll do them all 3 or 4 in one day. Saturday, May the 10th, 2014, number 2150. 2150, 2001, MMCL. It's called Occupation, Unemployment. Story of my life these days. I do not want to propose that you honestly think very little of me and my work. Then I had a near-death experience during which I nearly died. You try that while listening to the Bloody Beetroots. That was an actual rock group, pop group. Or maybe not. He stops me in the middle of it all, says he's having a divine inquisition. Asks if I sent the text to Laura. No. Says I should do it immediately. Okay. So what do I do? That's what I'm trying like mad to recall. Okay. Sunday, May the 11th, 2014. This is shows that, I mean, I like writing very tiny poems sometimes. And in fact, when I first started this whole project, I said, okay, these poems are only going to be poems that would go on one page, 1 8.5 by 11 page. I later amended that in my head to, if I went over that amount, by going, okay, so if in tiny font or something like that. And then I got to thinking mathematically, and I was like, you can put basically almost an infinite poem, I suppose, on a sheet of paper if you wanted, depending on how small you put it. So I did start writing a few longer pieces, but I also love writing short pieces when they work. And sometimes I think they do. I feel like not many people do that. I've not seen a lot of people do that these days, but some do. But there used to be those folks who used to write great short poems. Sunday, May the 11th, 2014, number 2151. The Promises I've Made to Myself and to Others is what it's called. Never stop seeking what's important and pleasurable. The new spirituality. Gag me with a New Year's resolution. Monday, May the 12th, 2014, number 2152. There's a slight chance that I'm rewriting poems that I've never written before without bothering to explain, in brackets there. Brainstorm and move forward, modify and perfect other things. Thank you. A new process for birthdays. Ask questions. Operate as a business. Tuesday, May 13th, 2014, number 2153 of the Anachronisms was posted. It's called A Vegetable Orchestra. I guess, a vegetable orchestra. Shallow hedonism is important and pleasurable. It's my business, like taking trips to Boston and New York is others. Sometimes a clear time frame is difficult to graph. What has become of it? Throw a party for mom. This is what I used to bring my mother. I used to buy tickets to have my mom come and see me in San Francisco. She seemed to really like that, and it kept me from having to go to Arkansas that much. Not sorry. And yeah. And one year she came on her birthday. Her birthday was during the time that she was here, January the 9th. And I threw her a birthday party and had all my friends come over, and it was really fun. Back when I had friends. Throw a party for mom. Whom to invite? Nobody even knows her here. What would that be like? It was really good. Meanwhile, making every moment as perfect as possible becomes too much of a headache for this hedonist. A pleasurable migraine? Not that I even know what that means. And by that, I even meant migraine, because I've never had a migraine. I do have headaches. Floating inside a cloud of buzz over Angel Island. And that's in parentheses, and that's the last just set there. Okay, next up, we'll go through all through May of 2014. And then I think I'll just start at maybe I'll do one more month, since that'll be another, yeah. And then I may start from the beginning, my latest ones, and just move backwards until the time is up. I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll see. Wednesday, May the 14th, 2014, number 2154. I'm eager, engaging, forwardly thinking, hungry, and a bit difficult. I'm trying to pass peacefully through the day. On the other hand, it's rainy and I have lost my nice umbrella. So many fluttering thoughts post-revelry, but one that's consistent is overloaded and utterly brilliant. Meanwhile, on another planet, a grandmother is teaching her grandson how to cook the family specialty. May 15th, 2014, number 2155. Begins with an epigraph, which is, and this is the first one I've read that has one. It's, I do quotes, whatever I'm reading at the time, or, my favorite poets or stuff that I've written down in the margins of where I write my poems. I do like to tout the people that I really love and riff off, or utilize the subject they're using, or just put it up there anyway, just no matter what it means. The rest, of the poem. 2155. Absence is harder to accept than death. That is Etel Adnan. Desire to do something different versus desire to stay in comfort zone. Who am I besides this very comfortable gray plaid shirt that I'm wearing now? I cannot trace it back. Doing this sometimes feels dangerous, but is it? I am denied balance or the deepness. Sit, an eagerness overfilled until the thoughts in my head start to evaporate one by one. There's a lot of Buddhist poets out there. There are a lot. I mean, I kind of can understand the notion of Buddhism. Sometimes it really does. But when I actually do say I'm meditating, I'm not getting rid of everything in my head. That's not what I'm doing. That is not my meditation. Okay. Saturday, May the 17th, 2014, number 2156. A crummy couple of days mood-wise is my own damn fault. Augmenting that, diversions are slow, sluggish. The heat is on. Now, if I can just get to it. I want but cannot see. So I got my eyes examined earlier today, picked out a new pair of glasses, yet haven't purchased them yet. Maybe I won't. Gazing at the blurred ocean on the last day of the year, sipping juice, apple juice and ocean and apple juice. Sunday, May the 18th, 2014, I posted Anachronism 2157. And I put in parentheses at that 2, because as happens when you're doing a poem and you've decided to use Roman numerals as the title for each poem, and you get up to 5,000 of them or whatever, you repeat that number, or you go backwards, or you mess up the number at some point, and you kind of go, everything goes haywire. So this, if there's in parentheses 2, that means that maybe the one previous to it was the first one that was, no, looks like there are 2 of them somewhere. So there's another version, there's another 2157 somewhere. Sunday, May the 18th, 2014, it's called Blood Orange, is a treatise on why this is not art. Happenstance puts me in an unknown location, dizzy from gorging. I look up to pass out. Exhausted, gypsy cannibal wanders ages looking for home. Monday, May 19th, 2014, number 2158 of the Anachronisms was posted. I have many questions. Where are you staying? With whom are you visiting? How is winter on the other side of the world? I'm currently melting into our bedroom. Solid and liquid am I. A monkey stares into space. Whatever is vaguely over my head. Boss hobbles into office. I court an ounce of hooch. Now that it's almost weekend, these smelly parties are happening. All at once, I go to the board, mopey, sluggy, bitchy, and edgy all week. Like new dwarves, mopey, sluggy, etc. I am feeling so go-to. Otto just called. Until then, it was one of those days. One tiny moment solves everything. Underline everything. Scratch that, all caps that. That, in all caps, feels right. Is just the ticket. Strikes a pang of contrast against how substance abuse fails quite often. Wednesday, May the 21st, 2014, number 2159. I seem to be missing everything. He looks at me with scorn, and I'm inclined to blurt out that I've been up all morning writing poems. The apartment was messy, and I was afraid to look my paycheck in the eye. We watched episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond, retiring to the bathroom. What else? Already 4 days into the new year, and a Christmas present arrives. A case of Peter Pan peanut butter. Thank you, Jameen. Yeah. Thursday, May the 22nd, 2014, I posted Anachronism 2165. It's called The Sunken Galleon. I purchased a pocket calendar and a 3-hole punch with my corporate credit card. I danced the night away on January 1st after falling asleep at 11:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Otto came to bed around 12:30 a.m., and I recall popping up to say Happy New Year and plopping him a kiss before rolling over and falling asleep. The holiday seemed replete with festive fetching. We chill and chat and chill and chat with Kathleen something or other. I see her all the time, and behold, she's blogging everything I'm reading. I'm definitely hungry, but all I can smell is onions. All right, here's one that's, okay. Friday, May the 23rd, 2014, I posted Anachronism 2166. I'm going to just take off my jacket, which I had. It's not that it's that warm, but I'll call it a costume change. So it's called Way to Go Through That List Every Day. And it starts with a quote. They were trying to set up their action in my mind way back then and ancient now. Alice Notley. I thought that quote so appropriate for these pieces. for the whole thing. Highlights from Mom's trip here: driving to Monterey, meeting Otto's mom, going to the Monterey Aquarium, drinking chamomile tea, new job, back up to highlights from Mom's visit to Napa, Sonoma, Calistoga on Sunday, drinking with Mom on her 63rd birthday. So she'd been up for more than one birthday. This was the last time that she'd come up, and we went to, I usually we usually went to wine country while she was here at some point, because I love going there, and she seemed to like it too. But we wound up going up to Napa rather than Sonoma. I think we went maybe both, but that last trip, I just remember it was a beautiful place. I can't remember what it's called, but that was fun. There's a picture of her. I think Otto got her, bought her a hat. She looks great. Big old red hat or something. Dancing at Ruby Sky. Suspicious package left in American Airlines terminal. Me being so out of it. Mom being here for 10 days. Focus turning into a dizzying fuzziness. Sanctuary. That's a dance at First and Harrison, which we call Palladium Place. By my friends that used to go dancing there with me. It's really beautiful outside. That feeling that I'm going to forget turning in our rent check. The realization that it was Stephanie's blog. A blog within a blog found on a postcard. The picture on the postcard is of me, all things being relative in Arkansas. That's kind of a bad joke. I made her a cake while she made apple pie. My mother makes the best apple pie ever. Playing Rook, feeling high, talking about life. Rook comes up twice in the poems that I've read today. It's probably the only 2 times I've mentioned Rook, I think, but I don't know. It's interesting. Later, we are dancing in our spot and taking off our shirts, which is current fashion. I remember calling someone to come by on Monday. Then I had my near-death experience. During which I really thought I was dying. Underline and italicized, making sure I was okay. Please make sure that I'm okay. I did have a near-death experience. Saturday, May the 24th, 2014, number 2167 was posted to the Anachronisms blog. It's a short one. There was lots of lounging that weekend and long conversations about life. Living without a plan has grown tedious. I have a growing desire to clean the windshield and yet shrinking funds for new windshield wipers. Story of my life. Here we go. Sunday, May 25th, 2014. I posted number 2168 and called it Swim Away from Eminem. Eminem being the singer, not M&M's, the candy, but it seems obvious that I place too much credence in the concept of going out with a bang. Also, I often get this sinking feeling that too many people, especially closer friends, think of me as a sad and pathetic man. Did I? Fortunately, part of me believes that isn't the perception in reality, that it's at least a bit more related to my own medial regard of myself, which, also fortunate, isn't the most consistent notion that I have of myself. Anger and hatred are putrid. I'll add to that initial word, prolonged anger. That's messed up. Probably any kind of anger, putrid, stunting, bad, but there's nothing more stifling, and therefore I use the word putrid, but would I suspect be more accurate with using the word pathetic or tragic. Nothing is worse, let's just say for me, than that putrid feeling I too at times have of myself. The worst it always does is stop the world. The only one, my world, which isn't really the only world, but let's face it, truly is. That kind of went all over the place, but Monday, May the 26th, 2014, number 2169 is called A Hiss Is Not a Purr. I'm so sorry to have to inform you that you seem to have taken the wrong train. The one you need picks up every 45 on the corner of Monteith and Hoffman. Anyway, so after that, I watched Betty White on Conan. Isn't she just the bee's knees? Diary, remember, whatever. Tuesday, May the 27th, 2014, number 2170 is called Don't Bite the Hand That Feeds You, Bite the Hair of the Dog That Bit You. Sober October could actually be the title of my next poem, I think. And this one I just overheard while walking down Mason Street. Slap me with your tiny weenie. But this one's more for Mondays or for the Tuesday after a 3-day weekend. Who's got a heart of gold? Let's hear it for the heart of gold. Now that I'm off the sidewalk, my dear, this just in. My name is Jeffy. I'm really hot Russian girl. I very like the virtual hot meeting. If you are really interesting to love chat, meeting, change photos, hot webcam, Skype, talk with me or with my girlfriends, please go to my webpage, P-A-A-G-E, www.rfdatingxxx.ru. My gentlemen, thanks and have a good day. I have often used spam in my poetry, just flat out, straight from my rote. And I did put that in quotes, but it's a good one, pretty good one. Wednesday, May the 28th, 2014, number 2171, begins with an epigraph. I guess we'll never have an orgiastic happening. That is Stephanie Young. Although I have to believe in the poet who had a self-sufficient lack of certainty, it is possible that I might introduce him to you someday. Not to mention, as I write this, vocation is in the air. Or more actually, as I write this, vocation is in the air. Sick and sick, S-I-C and S-I-C. Rather than to be continued, how about let's get right back to this? That don't sound right. Ugh. Although this should have been the title, something happened and there he was. No joke. No joke. Like a postcard from a turd dressed in an iconic superhero's uniform, like a flash out of the blue, as if from thin air, as if still he didn't get to do it. He didn't even get it. But the sun's out. It's another moment, if not an orgiastic happening. Here's another very small poem. Thursday, May the 29th, 2014, 2172 is called Fundraisers for Nonprofits. That's a title I stole from a list on page 15 of Ursula or University, which is I just quoted her, Stephanie Young book. And the last one in May, and then I'll go to a different time. Saturday, May the 31st, 2014, number 2173 is called Something Still Happening. Some foghorns never make it to Leghorn, never mind the female of the species. I had to work for a little bit. It hurt. Let's start over without an overbite. Stop making funny just to make sense. Stop making love. Stop making fence. All right. So let's move to, I should have probably done something between the originals and that era. There were some really great, things get a little bleak for a while, but I still write. Where should I? I'll tell you what. Let's go to. Well, I'll give you a take. Okay. Here, how about this? Go to a time just to read a few poems from when I was, living on the street. So I was homeless in 2017, 2018, and from a certain period, first half of 2018, I was working a job in a program just that was reduced pay, but it was doing database. I was doing a lot of stuff I normally do, like database stuff, and also answering the phone for the Human Services Department at City of San Francisco, City and County of San Francisco offices. And so I'll just read the from February 2018 poems. Number 2,755 was posted on Wednesday, February the. Well, let me go backwards. Actually, let me go back. Let's do it in order like I was doing before. Sorry about that. So yeah, and some of these are crazy. Sunday, February the 4th, 2018, number 2,748. This has probably been said before, is what this one's called. Looking down onto the desert, I'm reminded of the dollops in his throat. It could just be the clouds, or how the currency of his voice was always paid in whiskey clinks. Where ace is wild or base is loaded. There's only so much one remembers. It could be, too, a resistantly lingering vapor, but a whiff of that surly misdemeanor, now gone, all but non-existent, a stinking extinction, the whole of which I'd welcome for an instant or two, and not in a regretful or spiteful way either. Oh, how very skewed becomes such glanced perspective. Would that I could pay my way clear through the pink rock-like layers that compass such beautiful buttes, compose such beautiful buttes. Pink rock-like layers that compose such beautiful buttes, as those that I have yet to completely imagine. But come now, could I? If not, but ascertain precisely my particular description, how each to a man whose clipped talk was such a dreamy golden voice gone voiceless. Ah, but whose now hasn't? Was everything that's me and mine in just one singular cloud that drops by, stays a little while, and drops a little rain upon the desert, and poof, was just a cloud all by itself, like me, like I am now, an isolated puff? How distant are the layers of that cake? And to the prick, each how he must have convulsed from such repulsion. And with urgency, and in direct polarity with apparently misleading charm, that with a similar conviction and speed a quick storm exhibits as it hops across the sagebrush of a summer afternoon, or how a bit further into the frontier, a casino's change leaks softly, swiftly into a pocket. With a whoosh, it's vanished irrevocably, leaving for jilted memory all sorts of bruises and cuts that in turn will leave scars, the very templates of bitter remembrance, and hands that remember being full of what's gone, as with a ghost town's erstwhile panhandlers. This story of a couple of men once disguised as sideburns walking through an arboretum, and how they were at once two books that being stolen from a leisure van parked on a little rock in Little Rock. How that little black pocket rock once conveyed a made-up mood, a few feelings, for example, like the ones given out by whistling sagebrush. Those same clumps disintegrated by the disappearance, now gone so damp as to give a vertigo, a berserk and unconventional spin. And do they ever spin? They spin until all of my arms and teeth are lost, until a single blunt pose of saguaro gets stuck somewhere in the rainforest of a distant hemisphere, as the vague scent of whiskey, as it clicks or as it clinks through the bone chill night after night after night toward the rocks that are uplifted and carried by the dreaming wind, and dropped as a stack like silver dollar pancakes into blood-colored buttes. And nearby, where burial grounds grow paler pink under the scorch, we're going to Illinois, aren't we? I thought I heard him say, if just to perk things up a little bit. But where did we ever go? And will it ever be remembered? The once and all familiar, and then we, and last, and since, and in parentheses, a discontinuance. So yeah, a little bit different mindset there, huh? But I do like that one. This one is Wednesday, February the 7th, 2018, number 2,799. No, 49, 2,749, sorry. It's called The Rambler. So of course, I've got a quote by Kenny Rogers to begin. Promise me, son, not to do the things I've done. Repetition is the highest form of slavery. Never mind that it doesn't matter what I say. Values are less valuable as the high ground gets high. It's our job to separate the wheat from the chaff, amorally speaking. Turning the other cheek is a sin, says mixed up God, who's always walking away from trouble when he can. I spit up an egg sandwich onto every offender. Each is an offender who bears a key as host to this year's city-state nirvana. Nirvana is made of regurgitated gold and molded bread, my dears. Good old bread. Sunday, February the 11th, 2018, I posted Anachronism 2750. It is called The Sequel. What I really remember is the snow that crunched loudly white, while 2 by 2 we emptied milk cartons all over the carpet, where we'd light a blunt auburn candle each time we'd place a large chicken clean into the oven, and then we'd find ways to warm ourselves up without speech until the cold was floating around us and not on top of us, like reindeer amid the pink canvases filled with runny noses as we always arrived into the same dusk-colored place. We'd be circling a Christmas tree. Teddy's got mine, with none other than our dusty favorite, Frosty the Sasquatch. Thus would begin the alt holidays through which we droopily, happily endure. And now, the sun shining its headlamp, out toward every slice of existence that isn't already pink, concocting brown and also blueberry and ashen gray, but banana too. And the trains whistling arguments with one another, nonstop red-faced outbursts over and under snow-capped mountains beside the exhausted stumps that stubble the inclines between the tunnels. These parched remains of an erstwhile lush austerity desperately seek, a simple spot in the shade. Sadly, being but stumps, and therefore never quite capable of grasping the fate-altering tricks known particularly by their neighbors, the rocks, each, despite a blaze-quenching desire, meets destiny by coming to rest beneath the canopy of nothing but emboldened stars. Each desiccated stub next to its very own frozen pile of decaying hay. There's only like 7 or 8 poems in this month, so, but still, I'm enjoying reading them. Sometimes I think these, well, some of them get a little weird. Anyway, but a lot of my poems get weird, so what's wrong with that? Monday, February the 12th, 2018, number 2751. Here, I said, handing over her lunch, I wrote you a sandwich. Arkansas thunderstorms are close to my own words, she responded, surely meaning something like, what a neat trick. That, however, was then. Today, I learn of a good friend's passing, and my current favorite person in the universe will not even speak to me, despite my trying in most every language in the same universe to explain to him that pretty much the only thing that he could possibly do to actually halt progress, which, as it turns out, is a difficult word to define in any language, is to cut off all means of communication. What a lazy way to go. This death by incommunicado. Indeed. Perhaps then the San Francisco fog colludes with that of my own. Feeling my way through it, this fog and that fog, I happen upon the zing of a word that once meant something. To whom, he asks my favorite person in the universe. Thus we arrive, the both of us, in colorful bow ties at the Awk Ward, AWK Ward, where for many years I lived, taking lots of pictures of myself just to while away the time. Much later, when I finally escape, I find myself at every Muni stop swimming in a curiosity that is almost always followed by an uncontrollable laughter. I'm not laughing, of course, at all of the people from other more distant terrains who stand in the subway or sit in a bus with long wands, which are called stick selfie. You idiots, you lost another month, says the person sitting directly under the ad for stick selfie. Or is it that the voices inside of my head dare instead to remain silent? Will they always be this deceptive, this quiet, this deceptively quiet, like an intricate, stealthy Drone driven from 5,000 miles away by an even smaller drone. Wow. Okay. Sunday, February the 17th, 2018, I posted 2,752. It's called Vine's Rhinoceros. Vine, V-I-N-E apostrophe S, rhinoceros. And it underneath that, it says an acheism that's almost a wakeism. And it starts with and then it's got an epigraph. I felt good that I had eyes. Joe Brainerd. Amazing poet and artist. Again, kind of long gone, but in the quiet room, I asked you a specific question. You didn't answer the question. You just went around the question. Then you think I'm flirtatious? Then what if I was flirtatious with the professor who was flirting with me? Long pause. I guess she hung up. So let's clunk. How's behavior light? Folly. How behavior light? That's in parentheses. Hello. Okay. Suspicious of the vines, she broke the rhinoceros, the vines that broke the clouds with the eyes. I sat up late at night, top bunk number 13. I shut up in bed. I woke up to shooting up. If you spit on a toilet, you get nothing but a spitty toilet. The toilet, the vine, the specific question in the eyes all went right back to the ache. Wow. Okay, Monday, February the 26th, 2018. Here's a shorter poem. It's numbered 2,753, and it's called Fresh Kill at the Pink Palace. Is it that this day, like any other, is rife with possibility? What did we do on those other days? And two more for February the 2018. This is Thursday, February the 27th, 2018, number 2,754. And it begins with a quote also by Joe Brainerd. I don't really think in words, but impressions. Saying something in words is so harsh, too general. It's never enough. Joe Brainerd. He has me giddy searching for that pot of gold. What a rainbow he is. I am so in love with not knowing where I'm going. Quick, what comes immediately to mind when you see the words shattered glass? I'm always moving around with some, in my pockets, in my socks, under my feet, in my hair, stuck between my teeth, etc. Today, I went shopping. For some, that's as of yet unshattered. It's expensive, though. And who needs it anyway? I'll stick with the ruby-studded diamonds in my pants pockets, in my tube socks. So I buy a stick of lipstick instead. It looks like a battery that, when opened, is a tube of butter. Earlier this week, I lost my lock that keeps my few belongings tucked away safe. I forgot to pick one up while I was shopping. I was too keyed in to cheap bleeding jewels and lip-tickling batteries filled with butter. Knock, knock. I'm going to use the rest of October, my least favorite month, to buy a new lock. Stay tuned next week for the case of the lonely pneumonia. And I did get pneumonia. I was in bed for like a month in a shelter around then. Next up is the last one from that era, Wednesday, February the 28th, 2018, number 2,755. It's called The Great Unrealistic Ache. It was the summer of, I hate this one, in which the foggy details become all too clear. For the obscure clarity equals obscenity. To the foggy, it was never really that vague. I looked out, did a quick survey of the landscape of simmering wet toilets that pulsate due to my eyes' overloaded blood veins. And I thought, how cinematic. So caught up in this I was, that long pause. Oh, what a blustery day it is. Is it? It's so wound up that the groundbreaking ceremony for the hardware store that the neighbors are building, the ones who live in the tiny room that abuts our garage, was postponed indefinitely. Okay, I am wondering. I'm going to take one quick little teeny break and I'll be back in 2 seconds. I just have to take it, but I don't know how to. I'm not sure how to do that thing that shows that we'll be right back. So I guess I'll just. Keep it on. Okay. I was here all along. I somehow when I left the weirdly I couldn't see myself anymore, which is strange. I'm back, and I'm this is the halfway through point, and probably I'll see nobody on here from here to the time that I. Oh no, somebody's here. Thank you for being here, whoever you are. So I've gone halfway through. This is a good time to point out I don't like long poetry readings in general, and I mean I don't like. Usually, a poetry reading is a good poetry reading to me is if you got a person who gives up, and if you say two people, one reads 20 to 25 minutes and the other reads 20 to 25 minutes, period. It's going to keep it under an hour. So the notion of having a long marathon reading is like not although marathon readings in which you have different people come up and read, like they do at poetry, what's it called? What's the New York one called? It Poetry Center. I'm forgetting the names of the different organizations, but anyway, marathon readings. I participated in those where people come up. It's fun to have. It's fun to watch. It's fun because it's usually people get like 5-10 minutes max, and you get a good variety, and you get to see a lot of people that you wanted to hear, you never heard before or something like that. That's always fun. But like marathon readings by anybody is a little outrageous. And so and that's kind of the notion when who would want to listen to 3 hours or much less an hour of my own poetry, I suppose. But in one sitting. But there's something that I have been for many years thought that like a performance art part of this particular project would be to do a poetry reading in a public space, where there would be lots of people that would be going by just randomly, and what would they do? And I would have things set up, little tchotchkes or little things of stuff about me and about my life or whatever around, because this is really if there's ever been a vanity project, I guess this is it. I suppose it's really me trying to relay who I am in some weird obscure way, which is the story of my life. I mean, when I was a kid, I realized maybe when I was 10 years, when was this? Probably 13, 14. I remember somebody just knowing something about me. She said, "Oh, well, yeah, you have a crush on blah, blah." And I'm like, "How would you know?" I'd never told anybody that. It's just obvious. You wear your heart on your sleeve. I mean, I can read you like a book, she said. And I did not like that one bit. So from that moment on, for a few years, I worked really hard to try to not be able to be read like a book. Henceforth, I am now a person that literally, some of the most hardcore values that I have and the most intrinsic things, when I would have really close friends and I'd be talking with them for hours sometimes, they would still not understand. It's just like I seem to be unable to really relay my true self. So it's a funny way to relay my true self, this weird, vague, kind of non-linear and somewhat fictive way, or, quite fictive sometimes. But I, as an art form, I love it. So, and I do think that here's the thing. My favorite poets are those that I want to, as I read them and as I read their work, I just want to know everything about them. Those are my favorite poets. It's not the poetry so much as like, oh my God, I want to know who this person is. I want to know them, like Frank O'Hara or whatever would be a great example. Jack Spicer, although you get to know some of them and you don't really, John Wieners, you don't want to, you know too much, and then it's like, it's a little not so great, but can be. A lot of tortured poets out there, but that's really that's what turns me on the most in poetry. Good poems, no matter what. To me, whatever that means, and it's always subjective, I suppose. I love good poetry, of course. I kind of like have high expectations for. I try not to be critical. Whatever. Shampoo was known for the magazine that I edited for years and years. I think we first publishers of many poets, and many people who just weren't poets, which is fine, and I love that. I do love that because I think poetry is a great thing, and nobody should think it's difficult or anything like that. But for me, what really gets me is just I read a few pages and I'm like, who is this person that this person is mentioning? Wonder where they are. I just want to know the map of their life, and I think you can find that no matter how obscure or weird, or not really them. You can really get into who a person is by reading about their body of work, right? So that is kind of, I still believe that probably, even though, one might gather that I'm do a lot of things that I am not from reading my poetry. one also really, if they really did read both all the poetry, one could gather really who I am, I think, and that's important to me. I want to grab that kind of attention from people. It's just kind of, someone that I want to know who he is, So with that said, where are we going now? I will go to, I guess I could spend the next, I'll spend the next hour and 40 minutes, I guess, or however long we got, no, hour and 20 minutes, I guess, going from the very latest poem backwards. It's easy to do, and it gives you an idea of where I've come from, like the poems, if you were around, like when I was reading the very first ones, or the ones in the kind of what will be the middle, 2014. I just read May of 2014. Today we'll start with this one. Today, right now, I'll start with Thursday, February the 5th, 2026, which is unfortunately the last one that I put up. So I'm about 3 poems behind, as you can see. It's number 4,969 of these anachronisms. That's how many I've written. And it's called Shout Out to Who I'm Becoming. Type 2 diabetes, sort of told from the perspective, I think, of a stand-up comic, maybe. How many of you in here have type 2 diabetes? Show of hands. Did you know that you can be diabetic for years and then one day, poof, you're no longer diabetic? Which is basically almost happened to me recently. I mean, I don't know why I'm getting healthier as I get older. It's kind of weird. How about that? Oh, I have a walk-in closet in my new apartment. And I do. How many of you know, how many of you, as a child, how many of you dreamt of having a walk-in closet? I know I didn't. But boy, was that ever a sort of merit badge of wealth we were taught by the sitcoms in the days of our youth. Am I right? I now can say proudly and loudly that I have a second bedroom in the lovely apartment in which I live. Crazy. That's crazy, y'all. And pimp daddies. Pimp daddies. Now, don't you have it made in the shade? You know I'm not kidding. Let's hear it for all of you pimps out there. Show of hands. We're all friends. Now, come on, seriously, raise them up, you fabulous pimps. We can complain about each day until our mouths bleed, can we not? I mean, there's an immeasurable amount of bitching we can do, but God is most definitely watching over us, is he not? And that is no laughing matter, my friends. That is the real deal. On Wednesday, February the 4th, 2026, I posted 4,968 with the first tickle in my throat at 1 hour and 42 minutes in. A great idea saves the day. By the way, this is sort of the great idea. And by the way, the day being saved, I mean, this is supposed to be it is a fundraiser as well for me. I can't really talk. I don't like talking about that much. And plus I want to make sure I don't break any rules, but when this goes out, it'll be shown as I'll show how to give money. I am at the worst financial moment of my existence, pretty much, almost, it seems, aside from maybe when I was evicted from my apartment. But even then, whatever. So I'm in really bad shape money-wise, and if anybody wants to give, then pay attention to this YouTube video, which I think will be up when I'm finished as well. And I'll include like how to send PayPal or whatever, because it's pretty dire, and I hate saying that, but because of the last time I worked was a year ago, November. I'm still trying desperately to work. I've got some good leads. I think I will get a job soon. Cross fingers. But I build my credit up. I had to put my credit cards all into someone else is taking care of it. I've lost all of my credit, and I will lose everything unless I get including my phone, unless I get a few $100, $300-400, I think, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So that's why the urgency of doing this, even though I haven't included anything about it really much, just so that it looks like there are 2 of you there. 2 of you know, I don't know. I will be B, though, having to figure out a way to come up with some money. So I'll be putting this out and probably calling it a fundraiser, and then maybe saying how and where to send money if you can. But thank you for listening to that part. It's called A Great Idea Saves the Day. Oh, that's what I've dubbed it. My great idea. It might sound like a scheme, but I don't do schemes. Maybe you know what I mean. But what a truly Pandora's box of a sentence that was. Anyway, already I want to change the subject, mostly because suddenly I'm having a run with the nausea. I almost said the trots instead of, as that is what my grandma Hazel would have said to anyone within listening distance and without a seeming care in the world what anyone might think of her, all 6'2" of her. She didn't just have a commanding presence. She demanded it. Not that anyone would have looked down upon her for announcing so boldly her bout with diarrhea. It would have been quite difficult to criticize anything she'd say, as she spoke with such a wry sense of humor and was so affable, and with never even an extraneous syllable. But she'd make 2 out of every normally singular syllable, being from the part of the South in which she resided at that beginning and end of her life. Same place I grew up. So the runs. And now I've accomplished changing the subject and tone of what began as an optimistic and enthusiastic cabin made of words. I mean, it began that way and now wants to make its final thoughts heading in exactly the opposite direction. So if it grabs you by the get-go, you're no doubt a bit turned off by how things seem to be winding down. If so, I'm very sorry about that. If it makes you feel any better, and do you have Pepto-Bismol handy by chance? That initial fantastic idea remains not only doable by all perspectives that I can muster, but it is a plan that I intend to implement. And here I am starting in the starting phases. I mean, yeah, anyway. And so if I say stay tuned for further information, I'd surely mean it, as the plan is an idea most relevant to such pedantic lowbrow activities as the one in which both you and I are currently no doubt voluntarily choosing to actively participate. And thank you. So I would welcome it if you stay tuned to these pages for further information on this thing that I call a great idea. I didn't even note it on my blog that I was doing this, but my blog is at Anachronisms with a zms.blogspot.com. I sent out Facebook and X and Blue Sky and Threads or whatever. The poem as announcement. It's not the first time I've done that. Tuesday, February the 3rd, 2026, number 4,967 is called Honeys, I'm Home. And I put in here in brackets, to be read or sung, imagining that each word might mean something. Did anyone hear that? It's not so much that it was the deepest dip my psyche has ever taken, nor that I felt suddenly as if I'd been had, and in such a way that there'd be no more had left to have. All of my have being so thoroughly, severely, and singularly had, which would be a bad enough sensation to endure without the act of opening one's dry, tomorrowless eyes to the world that's so swiftly disappearing, at which I've given nothing worthwhile, never, not ever, not even in the least. Most certainly nothing to which any of the remaining inhabitants would want to cling, to which any of the remaining inhabitants would want to cling, might they even have had the ability to wrap an alien hammer neatly with a bit of what of me remains, a smidgen of tough purple sinew that once eaten, as the bells of the cathedral clapping so happily that an entire countryside awakens, filled with the steam and the stink of a passionate and enduring swarm of quivering earthquakes, metaphorical bellies, each and all, a quiver in their attempts to fill the chin to chop once livered soul of a life lived ever dully and with neon representations of what within my last thoughts, they exist, were of what the world needs now. Surely not something somebody dug up to smugly and mind-erasingly protect the liberties of an already forgotten tender bun, to unschool us all with what nobody ever have known were the nag didactic foreshortened swipes of forgetfulness. At this point, several drown, beings agape at such melodramatic spectacle. Each of these winter-watered souls now real deal gone. Soupy human dinner sans dessert for the deep blue highways top-heavy bottom dwellers who've managed to evolve enough to belch any remaining reminder that such talentless taste-free fricassee forgotten before being gone a mere minute or two by Earth's entire slew. Nobody's last days for naught? For whom, you say? Those gone so fast I'd forgotten to say, sounding a bit smitten. But isn't everybody's everything gone? I'm so damn sorry that I vanished. Say the slither-slimed paper planes, those voiceless anti-legacies, whilst the motion of this ocean pays tribute to non-existence by chewing up a charcoal chicken leg, so out of sight that it's henceforth totally out of mind. What happens next? Well, just imagine a fleet of chameleon-esque lizards running like hell to catch up with any of that tremendous yet unaccounted loss. But directly before their big boss, that conglomerate of Lizardhead, dismisses them one and all for the remains of the weekend, each poor dotty puff of scaly slough, knowing it'll be let go at the shittiest minute of the weest hour of a miraculously memorable and most up-and-coming Monday. And I often sandwich my poems between two titles, is what I say. That's what I say. So the bottom title of this one is, Who Sung This So Sincerely? Merely me, in parentheses. Monday, February the 2nd, 2026, I posted 4,966 to the Anachronisms blog. It's called the Anti-Dum-Dum Protest. And it starts with an epigraph or quote. A million leaves kimonos disrobing. That is Ange Malenko from a book I was reading, and I think it's the third time I've read it, but it was put out by Pressed Wafer, my publisher, Bill Corbett and gang, in honor of John Wiener's. Pressed Wafer was named for a line in one of his poems. In Boston, when Wieners was still alive, and I went to that party, the party of that reading. I had the honor of shaking his hand and shaking John Wiener's hand. And anyway, I think I say that in here. No, I don't. Not in here. His jacket sleeves were always, too long, and I just remember shaking his hand very enthusiastically. That he was so happy that I was there. I guess the anti-dum-dum protest was meant to be exclusionary, exclusive. Sometimes class distinctions are full of classlessness, and sometimes they're downright classy. But such dysfunction is nothing upon which to dwell, surmises Dell, this morning's despondent correspondent. The current miniature word berg of relevance was on the subject of a group in the East Bay who threw a sex party that somehow acted as a vehement and, of course, non-violent, except for those in the dungeon who never voted and were just there for show, as it were, protest against the hordes of recent horrid government goings-on. That's a sonnet, by the way, which a lot of my poetry is. For some reason, I write it just seems it's very easy to write that way. Not rhyming, but just in general, four-line stanza, four-line stanza, four-line stanza, two-line, two-line stanza, and then that's it. 7. That's it. I want to say 17. What is that? No, it's 12, 13, 14. 14 lines. And I usually do it that way too. A quartet, a quatrain, a quatrain, a quatrain, and I have a little hole in my head where a couplet. That's what it is. It's a couplet. 2-line stanza. Sunday, February the 1st, 2026, number 4,965 of the poems of the Anachronisms was posted to the blog. It is called The Rats Were Rodents, Suspense and Suspension Notwithstanding. Oh, yeah. And this, I was thinking, anyway, the purported murder of Punxsutawney Phil was a red herring, a mere MacGuffin. Long dead Hollywood citizens, all things being equal, for example, sound designers, assistant directors, ingenues, the extras from a nearly infinite variety of madcap scenes, the original novel's author, authors of novels adapted from movies, Pedro Almodovar, etc., rolled over beneath their respective concretized handprints, sidewalk footprints, looped advertisements of swaying breasts found from the tawdriest alleyways to the most commercial of the high-end drives, tombstones, even the ones with the most inaccurate, most illegible quotes, carved or imprinted in front in fonts that can be distinguished by a few of the most naked eyes and audibly repeated throughout mouths that in the most seemingly asymmetrical ways hang below the egg shapes of such alert nudity, their eyes, etc. So who done it? By the time each attendee exits the low marqueed cinemaplex, who all, without fail, via reflexes both voluntary and involuntary, attempt to quickly bury those silver screen tainted eggs by squinting away the afternoon sun, the greater human population of our divine planet would already know the culprit was neither the sister or either of the three adult offspring of January, our lead character. And yet these social media magnates, who from the opening sequence to the closing credits paid little to no attention to the neo-noirish flick, remain by far the most suspect. Saturday, January the 31st, 2026, number 4,964 is called Ignorant Humor, ? I'm no scientist, but shouldn't I be? And that one. Friday, January the 30th, 2026, number 4,963 was posted to the Anachronisms blog. In order to breed the appropriate contempt, familiarity requires a set of perceived remembrances, is the title. This is an untrue statement. The need is more for a held belief that memory has somehow been accrued, and that whichever the mechanisms that brought about this accrual were acting properly when hauling them in, and that whatever storage mechanism or mechanisms in which they currently and might have in some past existed have been consistently working properly. So the circumstances surrounding the haul made for as close to flawless representations of what and when the particular nugget of recording transpired, and at no point since has this recording been altered in any way. But is it any wonder then that any perceived memory is fraught by its very existence, that it might be a filmic or graphical or sensory construct in its totality, representing nothing, or representing what exactly? Thursday, January the 29th, 2026, I posted Anachronism 4,962. It's called, Were You Once My Husband? And it has kind of a it should be a subtitle, because the titles of these poems are really the Roman numerals. Familiarity breeds contempt. I don't plan to circle it, make some little notes in the margins, or come back to it tomorrow, but in a world full of dislikes, I appreciate this notion. Hey, I'm talking to you. Do you even know who I am? Yeah, there are a few worlds filled with possibilities here. The critic doesn't need to be happy that the back seat is where they'll find their nameplate. But can one ever be both unhappy and content? Or realize that one's place in the world is by necessity uncomfortable? Oh, at the very least. On our middle of the night video call in the wee hours of this past Sunday, my mother goes on about how she weighs less now than she did when she became pregnant with me, her firstborn. A few days later, I'm able to sit with what I think we might call the reality of this statement, one she has managed to bring up in perhaps three of our last four regular, mostly brief, near midnight conversations. Wednesday, January the 28th, 2026, I posted 961 to the Anachronisms blog. And it's called Things That Turn Mornings into No Sleep the Night Before. Out dancing at the end up for around 30 minutes, 10:45 p.m. to about 11:45 p.m. Worried all night about enjambment. Gotcha. Do I look like a person? Do I look like a poem? Would distract my evening so intently that it would provide me with a night of insomnia. Mom calls around 2 a.m. I'm headed to the corner store up Hyde for the second time in 20 minutes. The first time I couldn't remember my PIN number on my EBT card, and this particular stroke of midnight had been the 1st of February. And on the 1st, the poor earthlings, at least in this area, get $236 worth, that's my number, of extra food. Which sounds like a lot until it is revealed that what took 2 trips up Hyde and was nearly $60 worth of snack items, if you include mostly non-alcoholic beverages as snack items. I call Mom back when I'm back home the 2nd, 3rd, if you count getting home after dancing time. Wearing the headphones, I still can't quite understand her, and she's memorably wearing a big fluffy neck brace. So not a metallic brace, but what are those things called that look like they're an inflated neck portion of a turtleneck top that folks wear after having automobile or ski accidents? A big inflated turtleneck top, just the portion that covers the neck without going all the way over the chin. It's as if she's hopping up and down, making decorations. My mother can barely walk. She's in a wheelchair. But this has to be imagined. I blather loudly and surely annoyingly about my financial woes, and I'm not even bringing up the guy with what has to be a multiply broken nose bridge, just bitching about money to Mom, who, matter-of-factly, once a break is found in the airwaves, counters her hyperactive decorating for a party in the kitchen. Did she say it was for Michaela? Lets out an eye-rolling, haven't we all been there? Totally dry. Not sardonic even. Not like she's telling me to give up my pedantic woes. But I cannot, because I have such important goals these next few years, which I do plan to live out. I mean, we all plan to persuasively live out our last years, do we not? Even if we've had that serious conversation with a medical professional about whether time might actually not be left, which I haven't. Mom has. And yet, experiencing the two of us together in this moment, despite her clamorings on for well over a decade and a half now over such possibilities, it doesn't seem any more or less ripe on her side for such nonsense than it does on her son's, who continues to blather on about the unfairness of the last decade or so. Finally, I tell her I'd call her back tomorrow, meaning later today, which is Sunday, after which I'd finished doing some filing. Then thought irritatedly about getting back to the Microsoft and Google issues, so basic, so time-consuming, such an affront to the notion of customer loyalty, and also another knife in the heart of general customer service, during which I finish one book of poetry, Corbett and Gang's Wieners Anthology that I mentioned earlier, by starting another one, Diane DePrima's Dinners and Nightmares, which has been good so far. Typing somewhere near, of course it has been, typing somewhere near the top of my head, almost not thinking of what I'm even conveying. I'm just doing it sort of as an aside. Still fine with not having slept in the past 24 plus hours. Tuesday, January the 27th, 2026, number 4,960. I posted to the Anachronisms blog. It's got a long title, an anthology in honor of fleshing out the tenor to determine the venerant versus Hoggy submission versus the Hoggy submissions, particularly among those expected to have renown of any kind, as can potentially or possibly or maybe pretended to exist among such big crowded fishes. I probably should add, when doing an anthology on somebody, like a send-up of a poet who may be still alive, because that was the case in this particular instance. And I was thinking about what people had decided for this particular book to give to a book that was dedicated to John Wieners and his poetry. Boy, you can learn a lot by what a revered or venerable, and these words I use lightly, as in the particular poets could only dream of such things, or one might, from the outside looking in, see so much that can be determined about how each poet, subject, and the writer of the accolade, or whatever each decides to include. Should each have been included? Does each contributor, does the showcase poet, the subject, deserve or not deserve such reverence, or does there become the quick and bland building of a quickly assumed pedestal building stance so as to most often make a fool out of the acolyte and often their meat hogger? First, one must attempt to begin to set aside all judgment. Second, is there any relation whatsoever between said poet's poem and the poet the anthology is showcasing? That's telling. Surely, dear reader of this detour, can begin to see what I will be and am getting at, perhaps already. No matter, one should dig deeply, or at least begin to pick up on various highfalutin poetasters and such sitches as they, especially they, would find themselves numerously seeking relevance within the pairing, the combinations. Who agrees? This is very vague, I realize. Who are always missing, no matter the closest of affiliations with the showcased author? Who, check out the poets of the female persuasion, really make that effort to connect, to poignantly reflect on the connection their poem or their person has with the subject of the anthology. What do the hunting stories tell? This is really, I got to really edit this one for grammar. What do the hunting stories tell? That these ladies could not, or did the ladies hunt bisexually, multisexually? And what are those who relay the carousing, infantile, and more mature? Should that be a word that works in what might often be nothing but brags or something to elicit laughter by a common sex, particularly? Of course, because, the men, so often, and this is just the first fallback, the easiest, just throw something out that I just wrote, he must think, and I have done my duty and given the world what they want, a taste of me and my work. Don't be led down labyrinths with spiteful or seemingly derogatory or very familiar and vague with regard to how positive or negative passages. These may be done in the act of who those two literally did, poet and potentially great friend, or longstanding poet of points of or longstanding point of irritation, one to the other, but are more likely to be real. Dig deeper, ask questions, figure out the stories that aren't told by those that are. In this way, one can begin to learn who best to ask to put in charge of putting oneself in charge of the next great anthology. The end-all, be-all, send-up to the next subject of the next anthology, showcased and edited meticulously in hopes of building the best capsule of who each of these were to the other, and most particularly to the anthologized author. Find many examples and tabulate the flim-flam from the heartfelt and perhaps obscure but metaphorically representative of the actual relationship, or better still, to splice good stuff with something seemingly odd or off-putting, which when studied becomes the story of one of the most solid friendships and collaborations among human writers. A gold mine, something never known. How coy the writers seem to toy with one another, as if lovers, once or always. A true science lies among the arts, as sciences do, each elevating the other. If the editor has done his job well, his or her job well, their job well, whatever. Sorry. This, a job, a tally of infinite possibilities, meaningful, meaningless, and combinations thereof. That poem needs work. But in general, if the point got across, I don't know, but it was interesting to me, just the whole notion of putting together a send-up. It's the same kind of thing that it's sort of similar when you have like a going away card, somebody's retiring and everybody signs it in the office or whatever. What do they say? What do they not say? Who signs it? Who doesn't? Anyway, let's just get to Monday, January 26th, 2026, number 4,959, on a subject I've been thinking of recently as the sort of one of the reasons why we have such problems in our interpersonal relations amongst, especially youth, maybe today, the ones that don't supposedly have sex anymore. I don't know. Kink death. Sounds like a murder mystery with racy overtones leading to undertones and undering. I mean, this isn't about the death of kink. It's about how I've come to believe that the elevated significance of kink and the general hookup dating and are we vibing so? Can we get down to the business of doing what people do thing is? Well, I would love to argue it's a relevant contributing factor to all the stats about how kids aren't having sex anymore. But how do I know, except 48 years of living queer? Am I too biased? Given when all boils down, I'm surprisingly vanilla trad. I use surprising as it both stuns me at times to realize and not simply catches anyone who might think they know how I am. The nerve! I mean, truly, I wish. Should there be any of those folks out there anymore who think I'm a wild and crazy guy? Nah. Even as unsingle as I am, no matter the continually isolating circumstances of that singularity, it's just an exhausting subject to consider with any severity. And so I'll cool it down. It was, after all, just a hypothesis that's been swirling around in my can't stop being the social anthropologist headspace that is whatever there is of my attic these days. Just a notion to pass along without sounding terribly old-fashioned. Surely I do, but am I? Or over it. Two phrases representative of me that I can never wear well enough, being over it or old-fashioned. Maybe I should just go back to busting out my old school controversial notions I'd shrug off as if they were tiny appetizers just to rile people up, like monogamy is a ludicrous construct. Now that would get everyone going. Or, of course you can love more than one person at a time. Or, everyone's a liar, get over it. I think these are things I believe too, by the way. Or, do you really believe in privacy? Do you think you have any? Back when things were easy, back when a kink was mostly something older folks got that caused back spasms and weren't requisite initial base points that we were all expected to lay out on the table so as to be analyzed generically en route to hot or not determination. Sunday, January the 25th, 2026, number 4,958 was posted to the Anachronisms blog. It's called Peach Pie. Pretty sure I repeat myself a lot with vanilla ice cream. Man, that would be so hot. Like summer in Arkansas, I think, or a hot day in Boston, or hot Atlanta, where I've never once been. My God, how it all changes when pie becomes cobbler in my nobbler, because it sounds nastier than noggin. And with vanilla bean ice to the cream, man, so hot. Because cobbler is my favorite dessert. My favorite would not be peach, though. It would be blackberry. Just in case you were wondering. Saturday, January the 24th, 2026. Anachronism 4,957 is called How to Make a Friend. I do not know. When I felt that I had many, I'd have said I learned by example, that I was taught by people who knew way better than I did how to do such things. And that I was relatively late figuring out such maneuvers, that I am a late bloomer. I say that a lot and believe it to be true. Friday, January the 23rd, 2026, number 4,956 was the number of the anachronism I posted. It's for some reason it's called What Hides is the Brides, and it's in quote, what hides is the brides. Nobody actually said that. It was barely a misreading, but that night my bones were bored of feisty fun falls by the wayside where seashells are sold. Be bold, I thought. I could see the light, and it was past 7:30 in the evening. we would have just called this night were it not the middle of summer and the mosquitoes were hanging low. We always think we can hear the whine of their buzz with the humidity that's stuffed into a hot bubble that sits upon the earth and is as tall as we are, maybe 5'3" at best. We don't think much of brides. Well, I certainly don't. Perhaps the twins do. For all I know, Ginger does. Being one, taking one. How would I have known the difference, even as the oldest? I was reading of the dream-colored sex of Robert Heinlein's blob creatures at the time. Or were they asexual? Those were definitely orgasms that were happening, rest assured. That's my recollection, and how could one forget? My book was lying on my bed, the one that if you peeked over the vinyl off-covered white headboard through the window screen, you'd see the leaves of the backyard sycamore, the biggest branch of which I was currently swinging beneath. They'd flap a bit and stare into my face as if they were reading my mind, should the wind not be blowing them all silly. Sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning, a few might be scritching upon the screen, just loud enough to wake me up, in which case I noticed earlier I was talking about how it was the elm tree that did this, but it was actually both at various points. And I'm now trying to remember, was it usually the sycamore? The sycamore was closest to my back bedroom window, but there was a big old elm tree that had that's where the real, I had a tire swing on that and then another swing under the sycamores. Anyway, whatever. Scritching upon the screen, those sycamore leaves, just loud enough to wake me up, in which case I'd hop upon my knees and stare out over that dirty white headboard, checking to make sure the outline of a tornado wasn't headed directly toward us from Potato Hill. I'd imagine the ominous shadow one would leave in the light of one of Chaffee's flares, which were flung into the sky at all hours of the night during the hottest parts of the summer. This all is true. I grew up with artillery training constantly going on throughout the year. So there were bombs, there were things exploding. It sounded like you were at war, in a war zone. But I grew up with that. It was normal. It was a natural thing. And so also by that same token, there were flares that would go up into the sky that I could look directly out in my bedroom window, the window that was above my headboard, and just watch as they slowly fell to the ground. Once assured, I'd gathered my covers, and the Afghan Mom made us each of our favorite colors. Mine had a purple theme. Curled up into it and slept until it was time to get up and get ready for school. No dreams of future families, much less any brides, at least for me, as there would be civics and algebra and physics and geometry and band and my new favorite subject, which I would scribble in my journal my granny had gotten me for Christmas that I'd eventually fill from cover to cover with it. They didn't have classes specifically for it, but sometimes it would be covered tangential to reading, teenage poetry, which would be my favorite subject for a long while, starting in that September. Thursday, January the 22nd, 2026. And we are well into our second hour. We've got 42 more minutes left. And I'm feeling good. A little dry, but okay. Thursday, January 22nd, 2020. I thank you for whoever you are. That if it's just one person that keeps the one that's mostly here, that's fantastic. I don't think I've ever seen more than 2 people here at once. But again, this was so quickly put together. I did it yesterday, and it was tough for me to even send out the note because I was like, oh my God, am I doing this? And I haven't done what I was supposed to do with it exactly, but so I'm still in turmoil over here about money, but whatever. Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, number 4,955. Mapping out the bruises. Begins with an epigraph. Drop log on my foot. That's Robert Creeley. I have an asterisk after his name, so for some reason I felt compelled to write at the footnote. This might seem to place Creeley up at the top of my favorites list. I do quote him a lot. But that truthfully has not been determined and may never be. However, time might tell. Because he's not really, he seems such an outsider. He doesn't seem, but I like his poetry a lot. So I guess I should consider him one of my favorites. I mean, it's just weird. It just seems so kind of not in my area or something. I don't know. When indeed I'm completely wrong about that, I think. The writers I adore and read more than anything to glean any bit of their history, who they were, are, who they knew, anything of them, etc. That seems to be the difference between the ones I appreciate and the ones I learn to love. I was just talking about this. Devouring whatever I can get out of them. This is about poetry. One could argue against it. One could say it's celebrity, it's gossip, and I'm not going to go against that notion. But it still is the delineation between who I read more vehemently and with whom I truly devote my time. That says something, I suppose, quite a bit, perhaps about me. And maybe it's not exactly good, but it is who I really am. Wednesday, January the 31st, 2026, number 4,954. Watching my future dissolve this morning, I take an alternative tack. I dissolve into the beauty of the city that has, what, taken so much from me? Has given me such treasure? How else could it be to be here for 25 years? On the parchment between the greenery of trees, a heck of a frame, I see the outline of the Golden Gate Bridge. It is a view I can own, as if I could pluck and plink it, as if it were a miniature harp. What would it sound like, San Francisco? I have ideas, but cannot truly know unless I try. And if I were to succeed, that's the moment I'd finally let go of reality of this life, without even hurling myself off the distinct and recognizable structure so far in the distance from where I sit in this Russian Hill bench, on this Russian Hill bench. Should I do it? I think I could. Perhaps, but I will wait until tomorrow, I think, when my head is clear and my nose a bit warmer. What am I talking about? Should I do? Tuesday, January the 20th, 2026, I posted Nectars of 4,953. It's called Morning, which will come soon, but what's morning to someone who will live forever? It's a brand new day. That's what it is. Not that starvation has become less a possibility than it was before. Who am I kidding? I've lived on the streets and know from experience that if there are two things that can be found when one lives on the street, they are food and clothing. That's been my experience anyway. Meanwhile, we're living forever, or else I am. Am I not? I might as well. January the 19th, 2026, number 4,952 is called Night. Excuse me, it's called Night. I think we'll have an evening that comes after this one. Morning, night, evening. It went evening, night, morning. Is it balcony or baloney? I put my glasses on. It's balcony. That's no fun. I'm not one of those. Neither do I have any baloney, though. Let's begin again as if night goes on forever. My legs crossed in front of the laptop, the right upper portion of my shoulder, where it connects with my neck, pained almost to spasm, but not quite. I rub the aspirin cream over it, as that sometimes helps. It's the salve that I have. What else? Oh, it's night. Another hour to midnight. I'll be up a while, having slept most of a 3-day weekend. Missed a doctor's appointment, thinking it was only Monday when it was Tuesday. And I had truly thought the appointment was Thursday. I have to deal with that in the morning, along with several additional disturbances. I'm here, though. Should that be the end of my worries? That I exist? That I'm still here? I so wish. But it's like I'm looking at the penny bank, let's say, as the copper pennies drop from it into a well, and there isn't a thing that can be done. That seems a fitting enough description. It's maddening to me. And who else would it madden? There's no one. And so I watch the pennies fall one by one, trying as each one falls to become a little bit okay with each loss. January the 18th, 2026. Next. 4,150, no, so 4,951 is now called evening, as I said, as I was threatening. This one might sound a little depressing. Last day with food in the apartment. Well, there are some cans of beans and one of tuna, but no opener. And so it's time for the closer. How shall it be? For me, I shower after a whirligig sweep and clean up of the place. Clean up and starve. If my thinking were right, I'd be a millionaire. But it never is. That's a sonnet. Saturday, January 17th, 2026, number 4,950 is called Bigger and Better, and it begins with an epigraph. I want the world I did always. Small pieces and clear acknowledgments. That's Robert Creeley. Pumping a pledge into a flag is not what we do here. Who is more important, the people who keep us or everyone else? Speed through a red light without answering that question. Pardon my love, which is just a facade. Let's move our thoughts back to celebrity gossip, as if they were the actual ways of the world, and bypass those for now, the actual ways of the world. We too are the proud new inhabitants of brand new offices, right? So we went about taking measurements, size being all important. It turns out that my boxed office is bigger than your boxed office. What's the population of your apartment complex? If you lived in Idaho and I lived in Ohio, would our kisses have accents? Friday, January 16th, 2026, number 4,949, I posted to the Anachronisms blog. It's called Geeks Like Us. I know what I know. I know only what I know. The geek is freeing. The geek's in me. I am the geek. But my geek doesn't know how to get me out of this. I can structure this as if, but that what gives me the gumption, that which is my brain, brains me. I'm not a freak. I'm a Gemini geek. I can think, but I cannot want. What does my thinking want? If that's what it's called. If that's called motivation, then put me to sleep. Sleep like a geek for a chance at a brain. And again, that's a sonnet. Thursday, January the 15th, 2026, number 4,948. It's called Bucket Overflowing. I only know enough about it to know that I'd really love to go to Barcelona. Here's to hoping I get to travel abroad again in this lifetime. Wednesday, January the 14th, 2026, number 4,947 was posted to the Anachronisms blog. It's called I Need to Get Out More. Lying in the apartment, I never seem to leave these days, reading oceanside romance, the sounds the waves make, boats upon them, the health of sand beneath one's bare feet. But these days, I rarely venture out. I think it will depress me more to wander around in the city with empty pockets, which may be true. Nevertheless, it's 3 sonnets in a row. Here's another one. No, this one is a sonnet, but it's done differently. It's done. Wait. Yeah, it's done with stanzas of 3 and then a final stanza of 2. This is posted Tuesday, January the 13th, 2026, number 4,946. It's called A Piece of the Moron. Starts with a quote. Magic, which is trying to hold on to people with your own hands. Jack Spicer. I wasn't attempting to alter the course of my day anymore, which is when it happened. Isn't that how things so often go? And so I misread moon for moron, or at least I think I had. Years later, like maybe 5-10 minutes max, I was poring over the text of the 2 pages whereupon I had surely come across the lunar reference to the cheese of it all, but there was no moon. Had it been Munster or Camembert? The old man in the maroon didn't care. He'd just written moron when he had meant room. There's a lot more space in space, I think, when I do, which is lately all too often. Entering the last stretch, 30 more minutes. It's pretty fun, pretty different. Glad that you all that are here have made it. I really, really appreciate it. Monday, January the 12th, 2026, number 4,945. It's called Fancy Talk, and it begins with an epigraph. And the stony words that are left down with us greet him mutely, almost rudely, casting their shadows. For example, the shadow of the ocean cast, the shadow of the cross cast. Messed that up, didn't I? And the stony words that are left down with us greet him mutely, almost rudely, casting their shadows. For example, the shadow of the cross cast. And my name is Cross, by the way. I'm not a religious person so much. Jack Spicer wrote that. What stamina? Sure, it's amazing when we find the discipline to induce and then rev up the necessary motivation required in times like these. But to be strong-willed and experienced enough to know that it is possible and to put that knowledge to work by stirring up enough stamina. Wow. I've always been one to beat the odds when the chips are down. Haven't I? Or is that something I've held on to? A belief in myself that is but delusional. Would it matter which way reality tilts? Whether or not the belief in myself, the confidence was legitimate or fantastical? Because I mean, either way, here I am, right? Still believing what I do. I do have a preference, I suppose. I fancy living in reality over existing in a universe of my own ignis fatuus. Perhaps there are those who'd want for me the alternative, but for the life of me, I can't imagine why. Sunday, January the 11th, 2023. Anachronism 4,944. It's called Riffing on Observation. More attempts at getting to the heart of a pretty difficult matter without the bother of conveying all of the difficulty. I mean, what use is that? Because when I do the latter, as I sometimes do, it seems to me that I'm bringing on more grief, more tumult, torturing not only myself, but a bit more with my attempts at repeating the nature of my difficulties, getting into the specifics as much or as little as I do, but also dispensing the tension outward to whomever might be nice enough to pay attention. I don't want to do that. Certainly not today. And besides, with all of the tools I can use when going through the act of putting these lines one upon the other, for whatever particular reason that I happen to be doing so, besides the fact that this happens to be what I do, that one thing that I'm compelled and with discipline to build under almost any circumstance, the act of which this writing I have noted has often saved my life, or at least extended it. Anyway, to finish the thought that I seem not to want to finish, given the numerous devices which I can utilize when doing this, surely there's a way to express myself in a way that can be understood enough, a way in which the delivery is much less stressful than a rigid description without any unnecessary flair. Oh, there surely must be. I tell stories. I freely associate. I understand the concepts of metaphor and parody and whatnot. So surely there is a way to do such a thing during which I might lift my head high rather than cower with it angled toward the ground while doing so. Or is this just a way, as it seems to me, of doing nothing, saying nothing, of stalling with the problems still burning within me? Please know that is a rhetorical question, for I needn't an answer. Because I think I know it. Saturday, January the 10th, 2026. Number 4,943. I posted to the Anachronisms blog called Removing Some Tension from Each Line. If I have a strong desire to convey the feelings and stress I'm having from any situation, the contest or challenge is all about how to convey those without dispensing to anyone who might listen the actual stress, the torment that I'm going through, that exact thing which I am trying to relay. And for what? If I'm just venting, I mean, first of all, if I'm just venting, why bother you with such things? It's healthy to vent on occasion, but now I'm interested in how best to convey something to you that is causing me a bunch of personal turmoil without giving any of that tension to anyone else. There are my problems. These are my problems, and I do want to take care of them, have to, on my own. When I have to take care of them. So then what happens when that becomes an impossibility? This happens, I guess, but not, I've been waiting. Anyway, no, wait. It wasn't the question or problem I was posing. That wasn't the question or problem I was posing, but fine. It's the one in this case that really counts. Moving on. Friday, January the 9th, 2026, number 4,942. What industry is what this is called? Down with the Greek gods, and probably the Roman ones too. Graffiti that foretells is much more ephemeral than the sun. Sol's bright silver. I do that all the time. Sol's bright sliver of daylight on the road to Damascus, no doubt. Okay, what did I say? I still said SOL apostrophe S. Toll-free calls with voices conveying poems on the other end. I used to do that for Special Olympics. And for Southwestern Bell, sports and communication have been my life. Hardly, har. But have been some slivers of daylight. Well, that's taking it a word or two too far. Collecting the sheets of inked paper from the conveyor belt, quickly putting the several hundreds of unique pages together, binding them in the proper order, placing the bound product into a box, finding the time somewhere to lift each box onto the truck, hop into the truck, drive it out to the nearest warehouse, seek out and investigate local bookstores, locate an eager audience. All right. January the 8th, 2026, I posted Anachronism 4,941, which has the most unlikely of topics or titles because of hello. I've been pointing out that a lot of what I've been writing has been sonnets. This is called Against Sonnets. And it is not a sonnet. 2 lines more. 4 quatrains. Exerting a form of power used to manipulate a group who the powerful feel the need to suppress, and let's look at why that desire exists here. To force that group into submission, into an obeisance to the powerful, is not a sonnet. And if it is not a sonnet, then I don't know what might become the only answer to the what is a sonnet question, if I may be so obvious. What in the world is a sonnet, then? Can it possibly be this non-rhyming example of answering what is a sonnet? Or would said non-rhyming sequence negate its possibility as holding forth as one? Wednesday, January the 7th, 2026, number 40. Don't eat the mold is what this is called. In actuality, I don't even know if this is really a problem, but eat around it for sure. I mean, look at it. It's disgusting. Colors bread should never see. Colors bread should never be. Although in actuality, I've been at a bakery that has bread in almost any color you might imagine. But don't eat the mold. Better yet, get some new bread. Then again, how should I know what eating mold might do to a nice person like yourself? After all, where did we get penicillin? Or I do think that's where it came from, right? that it was once a drug delivered from mold that cured all sorts of outlandish ailments, saved scads of actual human lives. But who's to know, really? Not me. And we haven't had any of that stuff around in eons. Perhaps it's just a long-standing myth. But then again, many of us are. Tuesday, January the 6th, 2026. Thank you for being here. 4,939 was posted to the Anachronisms blog. It is called The Contemplator of Words. See that man over there rubbing his hairless chin? That man is good at contemplating words. Or at least we begin to hear tell of this. Ooh, a play on words. He is heard exclaiming. Most people just think he's off kilter, but happy, a very contagious kind of happy. He doesn't even seem to ever be looking down at us plebeians. But the poor thing. As the generations begin to tumble and then crumble, that old man's brain cannot even be held as an example to anyone of anything at all for those who'd arrive later. Monday, January the 6th. I'm going to fifth steamroll. I'm going to steamroll through these. We've got 20 more minutes. An old man's karmic paradoxes. Did I say the number? 4,938. Reflecting on his topsy-turvy, but mostly hard-earned, lucky, modestly successful life. Okay, it had been a roller coaster, especially here at what was surely to be the tail end portion of it. He had never believed in karma. That was too illogical. Oh, he had his dreamy fantasies. And for a man bent on engagement and logic, to a fault at times, I mean, he was a poet. And he could let his mind and at times his body and spirit get caught up in the big notion of romance, of love. Never fate. He was too much of a control freak, but he'd often make big decisions based on gut instinct and butterflies, knowing full well it was not a leading cause for true success, not for him. However, for one so internally steeped in logic, he'd lived through some fairly karmic circumstances. The biggest example that always came to mind was that he historically denigrated even the idea that a long-distance relationship might be a serious one at all, one born of long distance at least, and he'd think occasionally at the very attractive man he'd ghosted after a few dates for the simple reason that he incessantly emanated a dourly pungent odor of garlic from what must have been every single pore of his body. He would even jokingly tell the story if ever the right time to him arose. The years went on, and he began to take their toll, and they began to take their toll, most especially because the bright, fortunate life he led from place to place had taken a tragic turn one mind-altering day, changing his life so incredibly and only in the worst possible ways, the ones that seemed impossible to rise above. Then, wouldn't you know it, he found himself in a long-distance relationship with someone he had met on the internet, and was someone who seemed dissatisfied with the virtual ways as he was uncomfortable with them, preferring the physically present ways. It went on for many years, and even when he eventually found himself in its seventh year, having only had the pleasure of his company in the same physical space for less than a couple of weeks' duration, well, without going into many more details or giving away how that turned out, there was also the time he had that he thought an amazing connection on a date sometime after he'd parted ways with the Garlic Man. They thought he had an amazing connection with a date sometimes after he parted ways with the Garlic Man. There seemed such a connection, and on so many levels, but afterwards, when requesting what he figured would be an easy second time hanging out, he was blatantly told it didn't seem in the cards because he didn't like the smell of your clothes. Well, at least in that case, crisis averted, I suppose. As the old man grew closer to sleep, hopefully just that, one night late in his life, as he was thinking about these events in which he'd been part of and had molded his life in perhaps quite significant ways, each circumstance on their own, he recalled his stance on astrology, which he thought quite related to the stuff He hadn't put any credence whatsoever in the unscientific practice, even as he would seem inundated with examples in which the practice foretold severe truths. But he had found at an early age how enlightening it might be, how truly engaging it was when one was first getting to know a person in which there was an obvious interest or attraction, to ask the familiar, "What's your sign?" and then move on to a deep analysis of how each of their astrological signs gave so many clues about how terrific, or heaven forbid, how not terrific. Of course, you didn't have to go there. Their pairing might ultimately be. He could not even begin to imagine the hour he had spent in long conversation on that subject, and how it had brought him and the person with whom he was conversing most always closer, but sometimes also further apart, which could have easily been taken as proof that astrology was all but a spot-on science. That was his last thought before lying in bed in his rather modest-sized apartment, where he lived alone ever since that great tragedy so many years ago, before which he lived such a wonderful, blessed life. If one had been watching him, over him, if they would have noticed the early deep but fairly quiet intermittent rasps that would occur, in which an onlooker could tell that the old man in the bed was working his way toward sleep. And while there was no literal onlooker, those intermittent rasps turned with some haste into what would be long, ugly, extended snoring fits. A nightly routine the poor man had no idea of, having lived alone for so many years. Alrighty. Short one, Sunday, January the 4th, 2026, number 4,937. Where do fleeting thoughts go to die? As the dated references fly out the window into the field of the forgotten, show of hands. Black and white movie? Anyone? Thought not. But fear not, because guess what? Time. Saturday, January the 3rd, 2026, number 4,936 is called Sweating the Small Stuff. When you've lost something, or you have a portion of importance taken from you, it's nobody's fault but yours. You can't carry everything. The world is pretty heavy. And it can be such a downer. So maybe it's not a good idea to dwell on such things, except what if you have lost something that you can't live without? A piece of yourself that, without its existence in its proper place, part of your circuitry, a piece without which makes you less sure, but might lead inevitably to your discontinuance. Or if a teardrop of the gas that runs your soul, should you have one, without which, name something that is useless without me. Someone. Anything without which. Friday, January the 2nd, 2026, number 4,935 is called Never Having Imagined the Unattainable. Another night of no sleep, or none thus far. Sleep is a decision, but it is sometimes a very difficult one for me. I mean, I wouldn't say I have insomnia. I'd say the burden of what I'm having to do this past few weeks on into the upcoming ones is so heavy that it has left me at a standstill. But I have lost a lot of weight. I only lose weight when I'm stressed out. I'm down to the best I think I've ever been since high school or something. Or has me awake for hours just staring into the darkness. Usually I forego the darkness in order to just do something. Clean house, write poetry, watch TV, etc. In times like these, however, my mind simply races with all of the implausible, the new impossibilities, the things I need my brain in order to creatively inch into or out of or away from. Goals, and these I always have, very tangible ones I think on constantly, especially during such stupefying hours as these. I can watch them move further and further into a distance. And all the while, I can feel the presence that is whoever I am dissolve, dissipate, a standoff, a standstill, a stalling. Thursday, January the 1st, 2026. Thank you guys for staying. Gothic, number 4,934 is called Gothic Constellations Lead to Western Destinations. And it is in parentheses regarding abstract poetry. Abstraction, I presume, or from what I gather, is quite different from culture to culture. And in ours, for sure, it's too head-scratching for most. But that's poetry. It seems to require quite a bit for numbskulls to get into it, even considering 20th century art, etc. But also, it's about a step away from trad poetry too, because poetry thinks so highly of itself that everyone generally thinks of it as difficult. We have to work so hard to understand it, right? I suppose this is our multiculturalism topic for today. Or do you get that notion? Not you yourself, but don't you think others think that way generally? And I will say that if so, they are indeed misguided at best, but there are a lot of different structural mechanisms, particularly poetry. There are a lot of different structural mechanisms. Poetry architecture, and a lot different, wouldn't you say earlier? Literary devices, ruses, one might call them. So people go, oh, I just don't get it. It's so hard to get. What a lyrical fallacy. Writers do have plenty of traditional devices. Readers might enjoy them or roll their eyes or be oblivious, or realizing they are upon one get triggered into, oh, how difficult poetry is. Writers are no more complicated than anyone else. Likewise, readers can run the gamut, but are they? Are we no more complicated than anyone else? Likewise, readers can run the gamut, but overcomplicate the simplicity of reading. Can make things complicated. Can prefer or wish they were reading a novel or short story because poetry equals difficult. Novelists and novels can be quite complex as well, but the words, the writing, the poem itself is for a reader who absolutely should not generally need to know, much less understand, any poetic devices, anything whatsoever, except how to read and listen, or read and or listen to get stuff out of what's clearly on the page, to get big stuff out of it too, even, like what's not obviously there or what might be, oh no, complicated. But like surfing, a sport, sometimes I have no interest in, but a lot of people do. You need to do one thing besides simply read/listen, which is write it. Go wherever it takes you, wherever that is. And where it takes you is never wrong. I mean, you can get the wrong impressions. You can wind up someplace unintentional, which is sometimes fantastic and sometimes not, but it's not wrong. It doesn't make the journey incorrect or even difficult. I mean, especially if you enjoy the ride, take it, or even if you don't, by the way, take it wherever it takes you, and you enjoy that in some form or fashion, or have that dumb, I have to solve this mentality like you and I tend to have. Keep riding, and soon you begin to learn the different kinds of waves and how to ride each best as you can. And they all take you someplace, often someplace beautiful. Forget sharks and stingrays and shit. I mean, you may encounter those too, like in real life, or actually surfing, which you may enjoy much more than poetry. But after a while, if you want adventure, you can find and appreciate sharks and stuff, and you can learn to ride more and more, or bizarre, or smaller, or more unpredictable waves. You can get a desire for those, a fetish, so to speak. You know that is precisely the kind of didacticism that is pretty necessary when it comes to poetry, in my humble opinion. And yet, look at me, enjoying a bit of complexity and a nice metaphor I humbly happen upon. I want to read this because it's the graphic piece that I put at the bottom of it, which is also a poem of mine. It exists, I think, in the book Love Lovely, and it's my kind of it's a very short poem about what poetry is. It's called Dimpled Heart. Your knee moved 9 times towards the knuckles of my heart. No bird becomes a heart without plastic scars. My poetry doesn't understand the heart. It requires an understanding of the heart. I think that's where I'm going to end. Please stay tuned for the, thank you very much for being here. There's 3 of you at the end, which is like, there weren't 3 of us all at once, even in the first 2 hours, probably. It didn't that I noticed that this is correct, and I don't know what that means, and I hope that you guys are listening. You must be. Thank you very, 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 very much. You have no idea. This is the first attempt at doing this. I really meant it to be a fundraiser more than anything else because I'm desperate, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully, I think that this will keep, and I will post it, and then I will turn it into a fundraiser. And then this is practice now so that I can do that public reading. I may do one more of these in my own apartment coming forward, but that's only if I think that may be just if I don't get around to doing the other one fast enough, because I have to get some money, about, I'm guessing $400, $350, $200, $300 by the 24th of this month, or I don't have a phone. I already am about threatened, whatever. I'm going to lose my Gmail. It's crazy. Everything is behind schedule, and I had to move all my other regular debts, like credit card debts, to an agency that's taking care of it. So I've lost all my credit, which I've built up to almost pre-eviction times back in, when banks used to try to give me mortgages and stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And stay tuned for more. And I appreciate your being here. Now let's figure out how to finish this thing off here.